Hello all of you. I welcome you all to the discussion of 2025 Civil Services Examination. Okay. I'm here to present you the discussion portion of the question which was asked. So we'll be here in the next few hours. We'll be discussing the entire paper, and the each subject will be handled by the concerned teachers, the faculties. Okay. If I try to give my personal opinion, my observation about the subject, तो देखा जाए तो basically question was the paper was from very conventional portion only. If you analyze questions from modern history, polity, ancient and medieval history, art and culture, even question from geography, environment. So most of the paper, apart from some dynamic portion of the current affairs, most of the paper was from the traditional line. There were the questions, the quantity of questions which are completely out of context. Comparatively or relatively this year, they were on the lesser side. ठीक है, जैसे अगर आप देखें तो वही है, ऐसा कुछ भी बहुत ऐसा नहीं, जैसे इट वाज नॉट लाइक कि मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री से 20 क्वेश्चन पूछ दिया या मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री से सिर्फ 2 क्वेश्चन पूछा है, ऐसा नहीं है. द क्वेश्चन वाज नो फेयरली डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड, इक्विटेबली डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड. जैसे पॉलिटी में मोस्टली range is from polity and governance is the range is from 10 to 16 question 10 to 15 question. तो polity and governance से 10 questions were asked. ठीक है, IR से 6 question, again 4 to 6 questions are asked from IR portion. Economics से 15 to 20 questions are asked. ठीक है, so again 17 questions were asked from the economy portion. Science and tech, the number of questions in science and tech, we are observing that it is on the higher side. It is increasing with every year of UPSC Prelims. So science and tech has become very important. Almost 18 questions were directly asked from science and tech, and some miscellaneous questions were also there. Apart from that, if we talk about the history portion, which comprise of ancient, medieval, as well as modern history, the total 16 questions were asked. Okay, total 16 questions asked. So 8 questions were from ancient, medieval, and art and culture, and 8 questions were from modern history. ठीक है, बाकी geography में and environment को अगर हम मिला दें तो 27 questions were basically asked. ठीक है, so before let's start with our first subject, that is science and tech, and I would like to welcome Sakshi Vimal ma'am, and she will be with me and will be taking this discussion forward. ठीक है ma'am, thank you. Please come in.
Are we okay with the sound? Thank you so much, Shubham sir. Now, when we look at the paper, of course, sometimes it looks scary. And as Shubham sir rightly said, कि questions have increased thoda sa science में. And I do agree that some topics, some questions might feel a little bit tricky. है ना? तो we do admit कि हाँ, science has come to be a little bit tricky this year. But it is nothing that we can't handle. ठीक है? So let's look at the questions. First and foremost, about trend, the number of questions are increasing. We are looking at 15 questions from science and tech this year. There are also certain miscellaneous questions, current affairs questions, GK type questions that are also on the rise. So we'll discuss that also. Okay? The set that we are considering here is set B. All right? So that should help you account for the questions. The first question in this set was, consider the following types of vehicles: full battery electric vehicles, hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, fuel cell electric hybrid vehicles. Now, the way that we train ourselves कि question कैसे पढ़ना है is that I look at, consider the following types, and I come down to say, what am I looking for? So, how many of the above are considered as alternative powertrain vehicles? Abhi, alternate vehicles to theek hai, we can understand, but what is this powertrain? This is something where we had to apply our mind within the exam. What does powertrain mean? I have to break it down and I have to figure out that it's going to be something that is going to power the train portion of some vehicle. Itna to we can figure out. Uske aage trying to invest your time and trying to invent meaning in the exam is going to become counterproductive. Okay? So what we're looking for is an alternative way to power some part of the vehicle. Itna we can understand in the exam. And yes, if it is the first question, it will give you that feeling of, Arey, I did not study this. Hai na? So we still have to pace ourselves and figure out what to do. So an alternative way to power your vehicles. A fuel cell battery, a fuel battery electric vehicle, is that going to be alternative? The answer is yes. Right? It's not the conventional way. It is not the internal combustion engine way to run a vehicle. So that's why a fuel battery cell vehicle is fine. Then a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, again an electric vehicle, again a fuel cell vehicle. So we're accepting that. And fuel cell electric hybrid vehicle. Hybrid matlab, it's going to have two types of energy generation systems. But again, it is not the conventional one. It is an alternative way. Right? So we're saving fossil fuel here. So that is why we are accepting all three to be the answer, and my answer becomes C, all the three. All right? That is my first question. Now, the second question was with reference to the unmanned aerial vehicles. And as I said, we come to the demand, how many of these statements given above are correct. We have to be careful in the exam, correct ko underline karenge, and then we have to see what are we looking for. So, how many of the above given statements are correct with response to unmanned aerial vehicles? Now, एक तो all three statements are all types. मतलब they are making a generalization for all the unmanned aerial vehicles, all the drones that are there. ठीक है? तो उसके अंदर the first thing is all types of UAVs can do vertical landing. Vertical landing मतलब that the drone which is operating in the air can land vertically, right? Without any horizontal change. Now, when you think of a drone to look like something like this, right? And the propellers, the fans are like over here. This design, so you can imagine that yes, it comes down vertically. But there is another aerial vehicle, another drone that we must study, the one which is called Rustam. Yes, India's drone, Rustam, which looks like a plane. Right? If you can visualize that, you will realize that that plane type of drone cannot land vertically. It will land in a inclined manner. So from example, you can source this validation. The other thing is that when you say all types, so then that means that all UAVs can do this, right? It is very generalized, and again, there could be an exception, which is why I do not accept the first statement. Do you see? One, there is a generalization, and two, I can also think of an example, an indigenous example in which this type of landing may not be possible. So I'm negating this with proof. The second statement is all types of UAVs can do automated hovering. Hovering means what? That in an area, that drone is hovering in that region, right? One, again, it's a type of generalization. And the second thing is to make that particular drone hover. Automation means that is an add-on to the technology of the drone. Right? So that's why it is an optional thing that could be added to the drone, and that's why I'm not accepting this statement either. Now, the third statement is all types of UAVs can use battery only. Ek to all, and then there is an only. Now, if you have a drone can of course use a battery, but what if it is a long range drone? What if it is the sort of drone that we have to send to an enemy country? That might be required to go on for a longer period of time. I might want to use a drone with an internal combustion engine. I might want to run it with fuel. I might want to even run it on solar power. We could have any type of power system that is there. And again, in the first question, we were talking of alternative, power mechanisms. Right? So of course a drone can run on gas, a drone can run on fuel, a drone can run on diesel. So all those things can be there. I'm negating this even with an example. Now comes the issue of psychology of the UPSC paper. I do realize that taking the answer to be none in a UPSC question is difficult, but the only way that we are arriving at that is because we have examples to support it, and these are examples that we have studied and prepared. So the answer to this question is D, none. The next question is in the context of electric vehicle batteries. Now, first and foremost, we should also look at the theme here. The third question is here, in which we are looking at the way that. So, question number 3 is, in the context of electric vehicle batteries, consider the following elements. It is the third question in the series in which we are talking about the type of fuel, the type of vehicle, and alternative mechanisms. All right. So electric vehicle batteries, how many of the above usually make up battery cathodes? So for this, first we have to revise what the battery mechanisms are like. So a battery has to be that there's going to be an anode electrode, there's going to be a cathode electrode. And I remember that for us to memorize in class, what we studied was that cathode has this T, and this T looks like a plus, and it is the plus wala terminal in the battery, right? Now, this is something that we have to remember, and they're asking for cathode in the battery. Now, let's look at the options. The options here are cobalt, which is a metal, graphite, which is a non-metal carbon, right? Lithium, which is a metal, nickel, which is a metal. What we know from static, what I know from class 10 chemistry is that metals are electron donors. Metals form positive ions. Positive ions have to be cathodes. The battery has to be positively, the cathode terminal has to be positively charged. For that, I require a metal, and my metals are going to be cobalt, graphite, and cobalt, lithium, and nickel, not graphite. Graphite is a non-metal. So that's why graphite will usually be used as the anode, as the negative terminal. Graphite, and another example is silicon. All right. So my answer here has to be only 3. I do agree that this is something that would feel a little bit tricky, but if we force ourselves to go back to the basics, we can force logic here, we can figure out what the answer is. All right. So the answer here was only 3. The next question was, what is the common characteristic of the chemical substances generally known as? Now, yes, the names are scary, right? We cannot forge meaning out of Cl20. If I force myself to invent some sort of meaning, I can't read deeply into it. I can't create any word association out of it, because these are code names. So Cl20, HMX, and LLM105, which are sometimes talked about in media. What is the common characteristic? So let's look at the options. These are alternatives to HFC refrigerants. These are explosives in military weapons. These are high energy fuels for cruise missiles. These are fuels for rocket propulsions. Again, difficult names to say unless you have studied this before. I do agree that you can't attempt this question by forcing logic by any type of guesswork. You have to know the fact, which is that these are explosives used in military weapons. Now, the utility of looking at your newspapers every day, the reading of newspapers, keeping in touch of current affairs every day is that sometimes you'll get that hunch wala feeling in questions like this. All right. So if you're getting that hunch, if you would have read this, this could be attempted. Otherwise, guesswork here is not possible. The next question was, consider the following statements, and this is about chips and the quantum computing. So how many of the above statements given above are correct? So the demand is that we have to look for the correct statement. It is expected that Majorana 1 chip will enable quantum computing. Now, when we were discussing our test papers, I remember that we had discussed that whenever you're trying to memorize fact, it is helpful that you're able to link that fact to something which can help you realize that meaning in the long term, right? So Majorana is a type of particle, right? This Microsoft Majorana chip, and I remember that we were talking about alliterations. The name is such that MM is common, so it can help me with memorizing. So Microsoft Majorana chip will enable quantum computing. It was named so because it has that linkage with that special type of particle which has to do with fermions. So statement 1 is correct here. All right. Then the second statement is Majorana 1 chip has been introduced by Amazon Web Services. This cannot be true because this is something that we associated while memorizing, that Majorana is Microsoft. Amazon's chip is called something else. Its name is something with an O. It's called Ocelot. If you remember, that's helpful. But even if you remembered the positive correlation properly, that it is Microsoft Majorana, that would also suffice for you to negate statement number 2. Once you know statement 2 is wrong, I eliminate 2 and I'm left with my answer. The third statement is deep learning is a subset of machine learning. This is something that we would have prepared well, right? AI topics, machine learning, deep learning, this thing we have prepared. And people who wanted a fulcrum, a focus point to figure out what statement is correct, for sure, statement 3 is going to be that statement. All right. So my answer here becomes C, 1 and 3 only. The next question is, with reference to monoclonal antibodies. Now look at the way that this paper is identified, right? In the initial questions, they were scary, but whatever the type of pattern and paper it might be, there will be questions that you have studied well, right? Those easy questions are going to come in. The questions directly from the syllabus are always going to come in. So the question is, with reference to monoclonal antibodies, how do we learn this? Mono means one and clonal means the same, clones of the same. Antibodies, antibodies which are clones of the same initial antibody, right? Often mentioned in the news. Consider the following statements. Which of the above are correct? So, monoclonal, clones of one antibody, are man-made proteins, which has to be there. Naturally, we don't get clones. Antibody clones are going to be something that we are creating for a therapy. So, one is correct. They stimulate immunological function due to their ability to bind to specific antigens. So when we study about antibodies, the way that they protect us is that they go and bind to the respective antigen of the target cell, right? So statement 2 is also correct. Then they are used in treating viral infections like that of Nipah virus, and that is why it was in the news. Statement 3 is also correct, which gives me my answer directly. It is 1, 2 and 3 which are correct here. Now see, what we had to do is we had to keep our patience and we had to reach this particular question that we can do. Then consider the following statements. Again, this is a doable question by virtue of the format, by virtue of the phrasing, by the language of the question that has been given. So consider the following statements. How many are given to be correct? So no virus can survive in ocean waters. Now think of it this way. 70% of the ocean, of the earth covered with ocean. Most of our planet is water, right? Virus also a very small particle type organism. No virus can survive in ocean waters. Virus can survive almost anywhere. And even if you're talking about virus to be a very large class of organisms, koi to hoga, there will be some virus which can survive in the ocean. So such a strong statement cannot be true. So I am negating statement number 1. This cannot happen. Then no virus can infect bacteria. Not only does this not happen, I know the name of the type of virus that infects bacteria. It's called bacteriophage. Right? So I have proof that no, this statement cannot be correct. All right. And in the exam, for you to have this confidence, for you to have this, clarity of your answer to be correct about right and wrong, you have to give yourself these validations. Then, no virus can change the cellular transcriptional activity in the host cells. So when you're talking about an RNA virus which does interfere with the transcription process, so then I know an example for this also. This cannot be true. So statement 3 is also wrong. Now, they've given you 2 questions so far in which the answer is none. And I do again validate this feeling that when you see none as the answer, you do need to have proof. Thankfully, the questions that have been asked in the pattern in which the answer is D, none, there is something to be said that it's been asked from topics you would have covered in our forum test series, in our classes. And that's why you would have the example by which to negate the statement. All right. Of course, there will be people who will say it's doable by trick, that no virus, no virus, no virus. Very, very generalistic statements cannot be true. Although that's true, but to have that feeling of conviction that by trick I'm saying none is the answer, right? You'll need that preparation. Then question number 54. This is with reference to GPS-aided geo-augmented navigation, GAGAN. The system uses a system of ground stations to provide necessary augmentation. Which of the following statements is or are correct with respect to GAGAN? Now again from static, this is something being asked. Now select the correct answer using the code given below. It is designed to provide additional accuracy and integrity. Yes. So GPS is something which is aided, which is helping us geo-augment our navigation system. The navigation system is being augmented, improved by geotagging, those GPS-enabled geotagging. Yes, so ground stations are helping us do that. So this is true. This is the function of the GAGAN system. It will allow more uniform and high quality air traffic management. If we are trying to do air traffic management, will a navigation system help with that? Naturally, if I get more information, more accuracy because of a navigation system, naturally it will help us have our traffic be managed and guided well. So statement 2 is logically acceptable to me, right? I can link it to the logic of the function of the system. Now, it will provide benefits only in aviation, but not in any modes of transportation. Anyone who's been driving any type of vehicle for the past 3, 4, 5 years, you would have used your GPS navigation. If we have such a strong system of Gagan navigation, why will we only restrict it to only air traffic? Of course, we can use that information for different types of navigation systems. So this statement is wrong. And again, logically, I'm saying that this cannot be true. We would not invest so much for something which is only a single trick pony, for a technology which only works in one method. So my answer here becomes 1 and 2 only. 3 is falsified on basis of logic. The next question for us is, consider the following statements regarding the AI Action Summit held in Grand Palais, Paris in February 2025. So, which of the above statements are correct is what has been asked. Which of the statements are correct? So, co-chaired with India, the event builds upon the advances made at the Bletchley Park Summit held in 23 and Seoul Summit held in 2024. Now, because this was something which was co-chaired by the Prime Minister, of course it was well in news when it was happening. And this was happening somewhere in February, right? So, this was there all over our news, which is why this is something that would have crossed your orbit. What we do have to pay attention to while preparing is that we memorize these details. Because the trick discussion that often happens is that if there are facts, it is usually wrong. But in this case, statement 1 is absolutely correct. This summit did build upon the previous summit held at Bletchley Park and then Seoul, right? That happened before. All of this information is correct. Statement 1 is correct here. Then, along with other countries, US and UK signed the Declaration on Inclusive and Sustainable AI. It is quite the opposite. The headlines during that time would read that it is only US and UK who are opposing this and saying that there is too much regulation on AI. Right? And they were the ones who were saying that no, we don't want to sign this statement. We don't want to sign the declaration. And what was the reason? That the organizations building AI are based in these countries. They stand to profit from their working, right? They stand to profit from the monopoly. And that is what the discussion was. The answer, therefore, is that statement 1 is only correct, and my answer becomes A for this question. Yes, it is truly based on current affairs, but this was the type of current affairs which was largely discussed, right? Of course, because of the Honorable Prime Minister's involvement and the stance taken by the big AI tech companies. All right, so that was question 55. The next question was question 61, one that required static and logic both. Consider the following statements, and which of the following statement is correct in respect of the above statements. So, assertion reasoning question they've given you. Some rare earth elements, first and foremost, some, and that makes my statement a little bit forgiving. It is not a general, it is not an extreme statement. It is actually a modified, it is actually a softer statement. That some rare earth elements are used in the manufacture of flat television screens and computer monitors. That for me to create the screens of your laptops, of your computers, of your phones, we are using some rare earth elements. Is this true or not true? Here, the statement 1 is correct, right? Then, some rare earth elements have phosphorescent properties. Phosphorescence means that that metal, if excited by light or electricity, it's going to generate light after a delay of time. So, fluorescence as phosphorescence. These two things we study. Right? So, these two concepts are something that we study, and these metals, some rare earth metals can have phosphorescence, true. Do we have examples of phosphorescence that we see in our world? Yes, we see it in tube lights and different type of lighting mechanisms. These lights, can they be useful in screens? Absolutely. Backlit screens. Backlit means the light which is behind the screen, because of which the light is emanating, because of which you can watch your screens at night and in dim light. All of that has to be because of a backlight. And by logic, you should be able to associate that that lighting can be done through phosphorescence. And yes, that's why this is the logic, because these properties are there, because these things can make the material glow. That is why it is useful to be used in a screen. So my answer becomes A, both the statements are correct, and 2 explains 1. All right. Now, the next question for us was question 62. This is again current affairs based completely. Consider the following statements and which of the above are not correct. Now, you should be careful. See, it is question number 62. If you're going serially, it will be somewhere in the middle of your paper. Your eye may jump over not correct. And again, the way that this year's paper has been printed, it's quite close together. There's very little spacing. So the risk of not reading carefully is as ever present. I really hope that you've been reading as carefully as possible. So this question was asking for us to look for the wrong statement, the not correct statement. So Indian Railways have prepared a national rail plan to create a future ready rail system by 2028. Now think of it this way, this discussion is happening in 24-25. Right? So we're talking about this in 2025. If we've created this plan right now, will we create a future ready railway in 3 years? That is the first logical thing that you could think. But truly, the thing that will give you conviction here is that no, this plan has to be by 2030. Right? Of course, there is the projection that it has to extend till 2050, but the larger target is 2030. Either way, statement 1 is wrong because of this. Statement 2 is an automated train protection system developed in collaboration with Germany, that is 𝐻𝐞𝐻. First and foremost, 𝐻𝐞𝐻 is something which is indigenously developed. That is why we've named it 𝐻𝐞𝐻. Germany has no involvement here. Statement 2 is also wrong. Right? 𝐻𝐞𝐻 system consists of RFID tags fitted on track in the station section. Now this is true because what we want to do is that for this future ready plane system, we want to be able to detect that the train is close to the station, right? So that certain mechanisms can be triggered. So statement 3 is correct. We were looking for not correct statements. I have to look at 1 and 2 to be wrong, and then I mark my answer to be A. All right. Now, see, they're asking current affairs based question. That is first thing. The second thing is you have to know the fact there are little things that we must remember. And yes, it was somewhat publicized, but against in all of the things that have been developed, I do realize that keeping it in mind could be difficult, which is why I'm putting this to be in a tricky group. This question could be called to be moderate and tricky in difficulty level. The next question was question 63. Consider the following space missions and how many of them encourage and support microgravity research. Ek to the framework, the language is helpful. They encourage and support microgravity research. All right. The first mission is Axiom 4. Now again, when we were discussing this during our test series discussions and in solutions, the name Axiom is similar, and it's again from the group of theorization that happens in mathematics. You call things to be theories and hypotheses and axioms. So Axiom, the entire point of the mission is that we are going to the International Space Station to go and test out theories which are there, and you go to the International Space Station to do what? To do microgravity research experiments. So you would have remembered this from our discussion there. That's why Axiom 4 is something that we accept. Now, SpaceX mission, ISRO's mission in which we are doing docking, undocking, all these things. Some of you would have made this linkage that docking and undocking will require understanding of microgravity. So that is one thing. The second thing is that the POEM module it had, right? So SpaceX had this POEM module in which it had a number of satellites, amongst which some of them are also designed to do microgravity experiments. So 2 is also correct. And as for Gaganyaan, when we're talking about flights this thing missions in which we are going to send human astronauts, of course there's going to be microgravity research. So all the 3 is the answer here. I'm able to give myself factual proof to validate the answer, and these are things that you would have covered not only in your current affairs resources but also while solving test series questions. So the answer is C, all 3. Here there's a bit of a mismatch in the way that the printout is there. So I'll read the question for you. This question is with reference to India's defense. Consider the following pairs. We are looking for options which are correctly matched, Let's look at the table. Dornier 228, is it a maritime patrol aircraft? Now, this is something which is true. The Indian Navy and Coast Guard use it. So, Indian Navy and Coast Guard use it. This is correct. IL-76 as a supersonic combat aircraft. That's not true. This is actually a heavy military transport aircraft, right? And Globemaster, it is C-17 Globemaster. It's written in the question to be a military transport aircraft. This one is correctly matched. Globe transfer means that, again, Globemaster means that across the globe we are sending an aircraft to transport different cargo. So the answer is only 2. The second one was wrong here. And again, this is completely factual. There's not much that you can guess beyond a certain point. So this question had to be learnt. The next question was, artificial ways of causing rainfall to reduce air pollution makes use of what chemicals? Now, of course, you could do it by positive association with the knowledge of what chemicals are used. That, okay, you may be aware that, okay, silver iodide, potassium iodide, dry ice, these 3 things are used to induce rainfall. Another way to do this question could be that when you see nitrate, you would know that nitrates are something which will cause acid rain. Right? If there is a salt with nitrate in it, it will mix with water and make what? HNO3, right? Nitric acid. And potassium chloride again will give you what? More acidity, HCl, right? Potassium will separate, mix with water, and you'll get HCl. That's why this cannot not be the answer. My answer is here, silver iodide and potassium iodide. You can do it by cancellation, by this thing, elimination. You can also do it by positive association. Now, for our current affairs questions. So, who amongst the following are members of the jury to select the recipients of the Gandhi Peace Prize? Now, again, this is something that you would have to know as fact. Guesswork here is difficult. The President of India is not included here. The Prime Minister is, the Chief Justice of India is, and the Leader of the Opposition also is. So, my answer becomes 2, 3, and 4. And again, guesswork here cannot happen by logic. Ye to if you know, to you know. The next question was question 56. It reads, consider the following pairs. How many of the pairs given above are matched? So what we're seeing in this paper is that we have a lot of data which has to be matched. It is completely factual. But if you've memorized, that is the only way for you to do it. Naturally, you cannot guess your way into seeing what happens in 2029 and what has United Nations declared. What is advised is that in your discussions in your classes, what we talk about is a good habit is to go and visit the actual website of the source of these materials and not just your, conventional current affairs type material. If you go to the website, it is on one page that all these things are displayed. So that visual memory association could have helped you. The answer is that yes, all of them are correctly matched. International Year of the Woman Farmer 2026, correct. International Year of Sustainable and Resilient Tourism, correct. International Year of Peace and Trust 25, correct. Year of Asteroid Awareness and Planetary Defense 2029 is also correct. But again, to do this through guesswork is next to impossible. Then, question 59. This has been asked because of our country's involvement, because of our great achievement. Consider the following statements in respect of the first Kho-Kho World Cup. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? So the event was held in Delhi, India. This is true. You would have seen it as the main headline on the day of the newspaper. Indian men beat Nepal with a score of 78-40 in the final to become world champions. Indian women beat Nepal with 54-36. Now, although Indian women and Indian men both won, but these scores have been exchanged. Right? Indian men won with 54-36 and Indian women won by 78-40. Now, these things were there with the valorization, with the celebrations all across the country. So, you may have remembered if you were following the current affairs for that day. The answer, however, becomes 1 only. Now, another question from sports that we're getting is, and see, but when this was happening with the chess grandmaster, all these things were discussed a lot. It went on in news for the entire week, which is why this is something, despite being from current affairs, we would expect for us to remember. So consider the following statements. Which of these statements given above are correct? In the finals of the 45th Chess Olympiad held in 2024, Gukesh Domraju became the world's youngest winner after defeating the Russian player Ian Nepomniachtchi. Right? Now, the problem here is, what we have to remember is, on that day, on the headline for the Chess Olympiad, it was a group event. This is not what Gukesh won individually. This is what happened as a group event, right? Which is why you can't say that Gukesh became the world's youngest winner. This statement has to be wrong. And again, we do have a lot of pride about Gukesh, but we cannot misattribute the sport. We cannot misattribute what event it was. The second one, however, is correct. Abhimanyu Mishra, an American chess player. American chess player holds the record of becoming the world's youngest ever grandmaster. Yes, so this is absolutely true. And my answer becomes option 2 only. This brings me to the end of the science segment. I hope you were able to get these questions correct. I hope you were able to utilize all of your preparation. I'll hand it over to your next faculty now. Thank you.
ठीक है. So next, I would like to welcome our next faculty for paper for discussing the subject of economy. Basawa sir, please come in. How was the paper of economics, sir? Quick words.
Sir, it was along the expected lines. So last time there were 17 to 18 questions from economy.
This is also, I think, 17 questions were asked.
This time also 17 questions along the expected lines. Last time also, I mean, generally if you see the trend, most of the questions are generally asked from banking and finance. Same trend has continued this time also. Majority of the questions are from banking and finance.
Any insight for the student for next year exam? What kind of strategy they need to change or anything like that? Any learning from this year paper?
Basically, the learning is you have to look at the overall weightage of economy. 17 to 18 questions. It is going to remain the same next year as well. With respect to weightage of themes, focus more on the pillar of banking and finance, which includes RBI, capital market, money market, payment and settlement system. Like this time also we had a question on that.
There's also, sir, one more thing I would like to ask. There's always a confusion in students how much they should be focusing on the conceptual part of economy and the current affairs part. So how paper
The
was...
economy is such that you cannot understand current affairs without understanding the conceptual part. So unless you are thorough with the conceptual part, you'll not be able to attempt the current affairs questions. So the idea is you have to be conceptual very strong. Rather than focusing on mugging up the concept, you have to understand the concept. Like even this time also, most of the questions were application based. Like the questions related to fiscal deficit, primary deficit. It required application from the students. Someone who is conceptually strong, only such a student could be able to answer the question.
So was the economic question from the traditional line only, or there was some kind of departure from the traditional?
Not any major departure as such in terms of weightage and in terms of nature of questions which is asked. I think almost same as what we have been seeing in the last 2 to 3 years.
Okay, okay. So please continue.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mark. Okay, let us now look at the first question from the economy. The question here is with respect to investments. Consider the following, and as you can read here, you are required to identify as to how many of the above are treated as alternate investment funds. Let me first tell you as to why this particular question was asked in the first place. Reason number one is obviously it is static part related to your chapter of capital market. Reason number two is in the recent union budget, there were two major announcements with respect to alternate investment fund. The first announcement was with respect to launch of alternate investment fund for the startups. And the second announcement was with respect to clarification given by the finance minister on taxation of alternate investment funds. So I would consider this particular question to be conceptually correct. In a way, it was a conceptual question, but motivated from the current affairs. So let's try to solve this particular question here. See, in India, we have what is called as pooled investment vehicles. When we say pooled investment vehicles means they generally pool in money from the investors and the money is then invested. Take for example, all of you have heard about mutual funds. What do the mutual funds do is they pool in money from the investors and that particular money is invested in financial instruments such as shares and bonds. Alternate investment funds are similar to mutual funds, which means alternate investment funds are also a pooled investment vehicle where the money is pooled from different investors. But there is one major difference between mutual fund and alternate investment fund. If you want to invest in mutual fund, as you know, you can start with a SIP of an amount of as low as rupees 500. But if someone wants to invest in alternate investment fund, the minimum amount of investment which is needed is rupees 1 crore. So that way, alternate investment funds are more suitable for HNIs, high net worth individuals. So that's the first difference. The second difference is mutual funds invest in traditional financial instruments like shares and bonds. But alternate investment funds, they invest in specialized funds for a special reason. For example, we have one specialized fund called as Venture Capital Fund. As the name suggests, Venture Capital Fund means this pulls in money from investors and the money is then invested in the startups. Similar to that, you have SME Fund, Small and Medium Enterprise Fund, which invest in MSMEs. You have Infrastructure Fund, which invest in infrastructure. And we also have a special category of alternate investment fund called as hedge funds, which are considered to be quite risky. So coming back to the question here, so when you look at the options, you can easily eliminate bonds as well as stocks. So the right answer to this particular question is hedge funds and venture capital funds. So the right answer is only 2. Let's move to the next question now. Let's see this particular question. It says, which of the following are the sources of income for the Reserve Bank of India? Why was this question asked? As you know, RBI was established in the year 1935. So in 2025, we celebrated 90 years of RBI's establishment. So that is why, once again, this question related to RBI was asked. Apart from that, if you generally see the previous year prelims, questions are asked repeatedly from different aspects of RBI. Like questions have been generally asked with respect to roles and responsibilities of RBI. So this year we had a question which required you to identify the sources of income for the RBI. So if you see the options here, now in prelims there are certain questions which are quite easy by the virtue of elimination method. If you look at these 5 options, you can easily eliminate 2 options. One option is pension fund management. And the second option is lending to private companies, because RBI does not lend to private companies, rather RBI lends to the banks. So if you go by the elimination method, you can eliminate option B as well as option C, and you are left with only two options, which is 1 and 2 only, and 1, 2 and 5, which clearly shows that option 1 and option 2 are right. So the only confusion is with respect to option 5. Some of you might be thinking, how is option 1 and option 2 might be right? Let me just take some time to explain to you why the first two options are right. With respect to buying and selling of government securities, we know that RBI has a monetary policy tool called as open market operation. As part of open market operation, RBI may purchase the bonds from the banks. By purchasing the bonds from the banks, RBI may inject money into the banks. And this is something which RBI does during the slowdown or the recession. Now think of it, when RBI purchases the bonds from the banks, these bonds will become part of RBI's banking department. And banks, bonds as such, as you know, have three features: face value, coupon rate, and a maturity period. So with respect to coupon rate, when RBI purchases the bonds, these bonds will become part of the assets of the banking department. So when they become part of the assets of the banking department, RBI would earn interest income on purchase of bonds. Similarly, with respect to open market operations, RBI may also sell the bonds to the banks. By selling the bonds to the banks, RBI may suck out excess money from the economy, and this is generally done during inflation. Now, with respect to selling of bonds, it might so happen that RBI may sell the bond at a higher price. All of you know the concept of bond price, right? So RBI may sell the bond to the banks at a higher price. So if the bond price is higher as compared to the price at which RBI has purchased a bond, it naturally becomes a source of profit for the RBI. That is why the first option is right. The second option says buying and selling foreign currency. How buying and selling foreign currency will lead to profit? Think of it. RBI may purchase a foreign currency such as bond when $1 is equal to 60. So think of it. RBI paid 60 rupees to purchase $1. Later, RBI may sell the bond at rupees 80, especially when there is rupee depreciation. So when it sells the dollar at rupees 80, it is in a way making a profit of rupees 20 here. It being said that last financial year, when the value of rupee was rapidly depreciating and RBI was continuously selling dollars to control the rupee depreciation, yes, RBI's forex reserves reduced, but at the same time, RBI was also able to make more amount of profits by selling the dollar. So obviously, 1 and 2 are right. What about option 5? That is printing and distributing currency notes. You must understand that for printing currency notes, the issue department of the RBI follows a system which is called as minimum reserve system. Under this minimum reserve system, the total assets of the issue department should be equal to the total liabilities of the issue department. Here, the liabilities of the issue department is nothing but the notes which the RBI has printed. So let's say the issue department has printed a note worth rupees 500. To print this particular note worth 500, RBI should have some asset worth 500. And that particular asset could be gold or foreign currency asset. So think of a scenario where there is appreciation in the value of gold. There is appreciation in the foreign currency asset held with the issue department. The value of the asset is increasing. As the value of the asset increases, naturally the profits of the RBI also increase. In fact, this particular profit earned by issue department of the RBI, we call this as 𝐮𝐩𝐝𝐸. So RBI undoubtedly earns income by printing and distributing currency notes. So that way, the right answer here is 1, 2, and 5. Let's move to the next question. Consider the following statements. The RBI mandates all the listed companies in India to submit a business responsibility and sustainability report. Let's understand what exactly is business responsibility and sustainability report. When you look at companies in India, or for that matter, anywhere across the world, they generally focus on profit motive. They generally focus on making more amount of profits. But it is being said, in order to ensure sustainability of profits, in order to ensure that they continue to earn profits in the long run in a sustainable manner, the private sector companies should also focus on what is called as ESG norms. What is this ESG? Here E stands for environment, S stands for social, G stands for governance. So it is being said that companies, apart from obviously focusing on earning profit, should also be more concerned about the environment. It should also focus on its social goals, as well as it should incorporate good corporate governance practices like regular disclosure of its profits, accountability to its shareholders. Only those companies which have incorporated these ESG norms, we can say that they will be able to earn profits in a sustainable manner in the long run. Hence, in order to ensure that the companies focus on these ESG norms, the capital market regulator, that is SEBI has come out with the concept of business responsibility and sustainability report in the year 2021. Under this particular concept, the listed companies in India, they are required to publish a report. In this particular report, they are required to provide various details, which are generally non-financial in nature. What kind of non-financial data? Like, what is the company's name? What is the vision of the particular company? In what way the company has incorporated these ESG norms? Those things the company is required to publish. So that way, if you see the question here, the first statement is wrong. I mean, someone who is attempting this particular paper, they would easily understand that when we come across this word listed companies, can I say that RBI does not focus on listed companies, right? RBI focuses on banks. Who focuses on listed companies? It is a SEBI which focuses on listed companies. So naturally, by intelligent guess, you can easily eliminate the first option. And like I explained, the second statement is actually right. So the answer here is 2 only. This is a question which is, I would say, the most controversial question in the prelims 2025. So let's understand what is this particular question. Before that, what is the context of this question? Why was this question asked in the first place? Generally, in India, the agricultural income is not taxed under the IT Act, that is under the Income Tax Act. Because it is not taxed, it has become a biggest source of money laundering, that is converting black money into white money. So repeatedly, it was highlighted in the newspaper that this is a time where we should start imposing tax on agricultural income. It was in the news in 2024. It was in news in the year 2024. That is why this question was asked. So let's understand this particular question. In India, income from allied activities like poultry farming and wool rearing in rural areas is exempted from any tax. Let's understand this very quickly. When you see income, it can be categorized into 2 types. One is agricultural income and income from all other sources. With respect to income from all other sources, on this particular income, one would be required to pay income tax under the Income Tax Act. But when it comes to agricultural income, on agricultural income, it is actually exempted under the IT Act, under the Income Tax Act. In fact, the Income Tax Act gives a definition of what exactly is agricultural income. According to Income Tax Act, agricultural income is basically the income which is earned in the form of rent on the agricultural land, cultivation of crops, and so on. This is the definition. But the problem here is, if you read the statement, it is not talking about rent from agricultural land. It is not talking about cultivation of crops. Rather, it is talking about income from allied agricultural activities. So, in the Income Tax Act, there is no explicit inclusion of allied sector under the agricultural income. Explicitly, it is not mentioned in the IT Act. But if you look at the clarification given by Central Board of Direct Taxes, according to CBDT, it has said that, for example, an allied sector like poultry, if someone is practicing poultry, and if it is practiced as an allied sector, when I say allied sector, it means along with cultivation of crops. In that particular case, it is agricultural income and it is not taxed under IT Act. But if poultry is carried out as a standalone activity means it is not integrated with cultivation of crops. Let's say there's a company which is carrying out poultry farming, a company like Saguna. In that particular case, the income is considered as business income, and this is taxable under the IT Act. So once again, read the statement very carefully. Income from allied activities like poultry farming and wool rearing in rural areas is exempted from any tax. So the key word here is any tax. Obviously, poultry farming as an allied activity is not taxable under the IT Act. But you must understand that on agricultural income, as per our constitutional framework, it is the states which can impose tax. states can impose tax on agricultural income, which also includes income from the allied activities. So that way, if you see the first statement, because it says from any tax, had the statement been from income tax, then obviously the statement would have been correct. But because it uses the word any tax, we consider the statement to be incorrect. At the same time, I just also want to tell you guys that I've gone through the different states which have imposed tax on agricultural income, and none of the states as such have imposed tax on allied activities. But that is the present status. But constitutionally, can they impose tax? Yes. Constitutionally, is it exempted from any tax? No. That is why the first statement is incorrect. Second statement is quite easy. Agricultural land is not considered as a capital asset. Yes, it is not considered as a capital asset. So if you purchase agricultural land and at a lower price and sell agricultural land at a higher price, on that, if you are making profit, it is not considered as a capital gains. You are not required to pay the capital gains tax. So that way, the right answer in this particular case is D. Let's look at the next question. Consider the following statements. As regards returns from an investment in a company, generally bondholders are considered to be relatively at lower risk than the stockholders. You can invest in company in two ways. You can purchase a bond or you can purchase a share. Generally, we say that investment in bonds is less risky as compared to investment in stocks. Why it is considered to be less risky? Because if you purchase a bond of a particular company, it means that you have become a creditor or a lender to the company. Because you are lending your money to the company, you will get back your money. In fact, if the company fails to repay your money, right, you can drag the particular company under the SARFAESI Act as well as IBC, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. So obviously, the first statement is right. The second statement is also right. Third statement says, for repayment purpose, bondholders are given priority over the stockholders. For the companies, whenever the companies undergo liquidation, the companies are supposed to follow an approach which is called as waterfall approach. So when a company is closing its business, when a company is selling off its asset, that is when a company is going liquidation. That time, under this waterfall approach, firstly, the company should have to pay back the money to the bondholders, followed by preferential shareholders, and last is the normal shareholders. So as you can see, the bondholders are getting priority in terms of recovering that money as compared to shareholders. So the third statement is also right. So all the three statements are right. Look at the options. Focus on option A. Both statement 2 and 3 are correct, and both of them in a way are able to explain the statement 1, right? It is able to explain the statement as to why bonds are less risky. So answer is A. Let's look at the next question. India accounts for a very large portion of all the equity option contracts. Okay. When you read all of these three statements, I would want you guys to focus on the third statement. Third statement says that there is no regulatory body either to warn the small investors or to act on the unregistered financial advisors in this regard. Here, this option is clearly wrong because we have the capital market regulator, which is SEBI. In fact, SEBI has been warning repeatedly to the investors not to invest in equity options unless you have good knowledge about the equity options. So that is why third option or third statement is clearly wrong. You go by elimination. If you go by elimination, you can eliminate B, you can eliminate C, you can eliminate D. The only answer left with is A. That is 1 and 2. So with respect to 1, it is being said that National Stock Exchange has become one of the largest derivative exchange across the world. In fact, the same has been mentioned on the NSE's website. So the first option is right. And recently, in 2024, it was reported that India has overtaken Hong Kong to become the fourth largest stock market in the world. So obviously, 1 and 2 are right. Okay, now this is a question about circular economy. Everyone knows what exactly is circular economy. It focuses on reuse, reduce, and recycle. So basically, the idea behind circular economy is to reuse the waste, minimize the production of more amount of waste products, right? So that way, if you read the first statement, circular economy reduces the emission of greenhouse gases. It is right. You might be thinking, how so? See, when it comes to circular economy focuses less on extraction of new raw materials. It focuses on reusing the existing raw materials, right? Think of aluminium. If you extract aluminium, or for that matter, other mineral resources like crude oil or other mineral resources, then what will happen? There will be more greenhouse gas emission. But the same aluminium is in a way reused from waste. The need to extract new raw materials will reduce. So that will reduce the greenhouse gas emission, right? So first statement is right, which in a way is able to explain the second statement. It reduces the use of raw materials as inputs because you're using waste as an input. It also reduces the wastage in the production process. The idea, the central theme of circular economy is to minimize the wastage. So all the three statements are correct. Focus on the first statement. Both statement 2 and 3 are correct, and both of them are able to explain the first statement, right? So that is why the right answer in this particular case is A. That's the right answer. This particular question is from the public finance, and someone who has a basic understanding about capital receipts, revenue receipts, they could easily answer this particular question. Capital receipts create a liability or cause a reduction in the assets of the government. So as you know, the capital receipts are the receipts which the government receives on a non-recurring basis. And generally these receipts will either cause increase in liability or it will cause a decrease in the assets of the government. For example, it will include the borrowings of the government, which will cause a liability. It will also include disinvestment, which may cause reduction in the assets. So that way, the first one is right. Borrowings and disinvestments are capital receipts. This is also right. Interest received on loans creates a liability of the government. Think the government has given loans. On that loans, the government is getting interest, right? So it is a receipt of the government. It is not creating any kind of liability on the government. That is why the third option is wrong. So the right answer in this particular case is 1 and 2 only. Now this is a very simple question about 𝐼𝐸𝐴 Gokul mission. If you have a basic understanding about why this particular mission was launched, one could easily answer the question. It is being said that India has one of the world's largest livestock population comprising of cows and buffaloes. The importance of the livestock sector lies in the fact that most of the livestock, they are owned by small and marginal farmers in India. But the problem here is most of our indigenous cows and buffaloes, their productivity is quite lower, which means, let's say, in terms of the milk which they are able to produce, that is quite lower. So, we have launched Rashtriya Gokul Mission, number one, in order to uplift the socio-economic status of the small and marginal farmers, and number two, to increase the productivity of indigenous cows and buffaloes. So that way, if you see, the first option is right and the second option is also right. Right answer is both 1 and 2. Now this is a application based question where you need to apply your concepts in public finance to get the right answer. So let's see this particular question. Suppose the revenue expenditure is 80,000 crore and revenue receipts of the government is 60,000 crores. We all know how revenue deficit is calculated. Revenue deficit is calculated as revenue expenditure minus revenue receipts. Revenue expenditure is 80,000 crore, revenue receipts is 60,000 crore, so revenue deficit is 20,000 crores. Fiscal deficit is rupees 10,000 crore. What exactly is fiscal deficit? In most simple words, fiscal deficit refers to the total amount of money borrowed by the government in one single year. एक साल में government कितना borrow करता है? That is what is fiscal deficit. So here the government has borrowed 10,000 crore. Fiscal deficit is 10,000 crore. Primary deficit is calculated as fiscal deficit minus interest payments. So government has an existing debt, existing borrowing, total accumulated borrowing. On that accumulated borrowing, government is required to pay interest every year, right? So if you deduct that interest payment from the fiscal deficit, what you get is primary deficit. So that way, fiscal deficit is 10,000 crore, interest payment is 6,000 crores. So primary deficit is 4,000 crores. Answer is 1, 2 and 3. So someone who is well aware of various types of deficits and the concept of primary deficit, you could easily answer this question. Once again, a question related to deficit. But here, if you see the question required you to identify what is gross primary deficit, which I have already explained to you. Gross primary deficit is simply fiscal deficit minus interest payments. Now, some of you may be focusing on the second statement, which is it is receiving 10,000 crore through non-debt creating capital receipts. Let me tell you, this particular statement was inserted by UPSC just to confuse you guys. It has no relevance as such because primary deficit is simply fiscal deficit. The gross primary deficit is fiscal deficit minus interest payment. In this particular question, fiscal deficit is 50,000 crore. The interest liabilities are 1,500 crore. So the right answer here is 48,500 crores. So that is how you could get the right answer. So those of you who did not get confused with respect to second statement, you could have easily got the right answer to this particular question. Look at the next question related to Finance Commission. You might think the question related to Finance Commission is difficult, but it's actually very, very easy. It becomes easy because of power of elimination method. Concentrate on the second option. The second option says 45% of the net proceeds are to be shared with the states. We know that as per the 15th Finance Commission, 41% of the central divisible pool of taxes are to be shared with the states. So we know for sure that the second statement is wrong. So if you go by elimination, 1 is wrong, A is wrong, B is also wrong, D is also wrong, right answer is C. So easily by elimination, you could have got the right answer without even knowing the facts related to performance grants or the facts related to educational outcomes. Now this is a question related to international institution. We all know about World Bank. World Bank as an international institution gives loans for the purpose of growth and development. And these loans are generally given to poor and developing countries. There are two institutions, which is IBRD and IDA, which together make up the World Bank. And here the question is about IBRD. IBRD generally focuses on giving loans to middle income countries, developing countries, whereas IDA generally focuses on giving loans to poor income countries. So the first statement here is right. Second statement is wrong because it says it works single-handedly. Because of the word single-handedly, the statement becomes incorrect. IBRD undoubtedly will help in development, but is it single-handedly doing so? Obviously not, because apart from IBRD, there are other institutions also which are involved in poverty eradication. So that is why the second option is wrong. IBRD was established to help Europe rebuild after the World War II. It is right. So it is one of the, IMF and World Bank, together we call them as Bretton Woods twins, which they were set up after the Second World War in order for post-war reconstruction. So the third statement is right. So the right answer in this particular case is 1 and 3 only. This is a question related to payment and settlement system about RTGS and NEFT. If you want to transfer money from one bank account to another bank account, you must have heard that there are different modes of transfer: RTGS, NEFT, IMPS, UPI, etc. Now concentrating on RTGS and NEFT, what's fundamentally the difference between RTGS and NEFT? When you see RTGS, RTGS stands for real-time gross settlement. Real-time gross settlement means if you transfer money from bank account A to bank account B, the money gets transferred immediately. Real-time transfer of money. However, when you see NEFT, National Electronic Funds Transfer, NEFT does not provide for real-time settlement. Rather, it provides for what is called as deferred settlement. Deferred settlement means if money is transferred from bank account A to bank account B at, let's say, 12 p.m., the money might finally get transferred to bank account B at 12:30 p.m. Usually the settlement will take place in batches of every half an hour. So it is not a real-time settlement. So in RTGS, the settlement time is instantaneous, whereas in NEFT it takes some time, it is right. In RTGS, the customer is charged for inward transaction, it is wrong. According to RBI's guidelines, banks cannot charge any money for inward remittance through RTGS. If I am transferring money to your bank account through RTGS, that is outward, banks can very well levy a charge. But if you are receiving money, for you the banks cannot charge any kind of amount. This is as per RBI's circular, so the second statement is wrong. Operating hours are restricted? No. RBI has made available RTGS 24/7. It is not restricted. So that way, if you see the right answer to this particular question, it is 1 only. The next question is about UPI going global. The National Payment Corporation of India in the last 2 to 3 years has signed a number of agreements with other countries under which UPI can be used to make payments to the merchants in those countries. For example, if you happen to visit UAE, in UAE, you can make payment to the merchant by using your UPI. So this question here required you to identify in which all countries you could make UPI payments to merchants. It's a factual question. So if you are able to remember in the examination hall, only then you'll be able to get the right answer, because it's a very factual question. It's not any application based question. So here it is acceptable in UAE, it is acceptable in France, and it is acceptable in Singapore. It is not in Germany and Bangladesh. Right answer is only 3. Let's move to the next one. This question is about Pradhan Mantri 𝐼𝐸𝐻𝐿 Muft Bijli Yojana. When it comes to solar energy, India has made rapid strides with respect to solar power. Right now, India is ranked 5th at the global level in terms of solar power generation. But it is being said that India has not been able to achieve its potential in solar power because of lack of focus on rooftop solar. So in order to reap the maximum benefit of rooftop solar, the government has launched Pradhan Mantri 𝐼𝐸𝐻𝐿 Muft Bijli Yojana. As part of this particular scheme, the residential households can install rooftop solar on their roof. For that, the government is giving some subsidy for the installation of solar rooftops. So, the question, if you see, the first option, it targets installation of 1 crore solar rooftop panels in the residential sector. It is right. The MNRE aims to impart training on installation, operation, maintenance at the grassroots level. This is also right. You must understand that if you have to install rooftop solar panels in the residential sector at such a large scale, we need large number of skilled personnel. That is why this particular scheme has a separate component of capacity building. As part of capacity building, we are providing skills to the people at the grassroots level. So the second statement is right. It aims to create more than 3 lakh skilled manpower. It is also right as per the guidelines mentioned by MNRE. So that way, if you see the right answer to the question, the right answer is 1, 2, and 3. So that's it as far as questions related to economy is concerned. So broadly, like I said before, the questions in economy were along the expected lines, almost 17 to 18 questions from economy. Majority of the focus was on the theme of banking and finance. So those of you who are preparing for next year prelims, please keep this thing in mind. Focus on both static part and current affairs based question, but you should have a greater understanding of conceptual part. Only then you'll be able to understand the current affairs. Thank you so much. Keep studying.
Up till now, we have finished the discussion of science and tech as well as economic portion. The next subject will be from geography and environment, and I would like to welcome Hrudey sir for that particular thing. Please come in, sir. Thanks for joining, sir. I would like to know your views, overview about the questions which were asked in geography and environment. Kaise questions the basically?
Thank you, sir. You see, the questions on environment were mostly on the conceptual side, but the most important aspect of this paper was the presence of mind. If the candidates could keep their temperament and if they could apply the logical understanding of the environmental concepts, I think they could have sailed the paper easily. At least 70 to 80% of the questions were doable. And if I come to the questions on geography was 95% on the conceptual side. If the candidates again were ready to read between the lines and just not lose the temperament, because the geography questions were mostly of the 3 statements, then I think again they could have done brilliantly well in both geography and environment. And I believe in this paper, when the science and technology was on the tougher side, it was geography and environment that will help candidates in sailing through the paper.
Okay, so any kind of insight which you would like to share with the student for the upcoming years?
Upcoming candidates who are preparing for the next year, I would suggest try to embolden your grasp on the conceptual aspect of geography, as well as try to imbibe the environmental principles. What are the principles on which environment functions? And I think if you can imbibe these 2 values from these 2 subjects, it will take you higher in the coming times.
What was the role of current affairs, sir, in these subjects for this particular year?
I would say that current affairs too played a very critical role, because there were certain questions based on the articles from the Hindu, the articles from the Live Mint, and those informations or news which were prevailing in the present times. So I would say that yes, current affairs indeed played a critical role, but still the questions were still framed from the conceptual aspect. Even if the candidate was not aware about the complete aspect of the current affairs, yet if they were having a good command over conceptual aspect, that is the basic aspect, they could have sailed the questions of current affairs as well.
And what about the role of NCERT in solving these
NCERT is
questions?
indeed the backbone of any preparation. So I would say here is as well the questions on isotherms, the questions on the presence of pollution in the temperate and polar regions. These all are direct questions from NCERT.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Please continue your discussion.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So let's begin the discussion on environment. I hope you all are energetic, because you see the exam itself was highly energetic. After seeing the questions, we faculties at ForumIAS, we ourselves have become very energetic, and it has indeed emboldened our resolve. Because you see, I will prove here through the questions of environment and geography how the role of foundation classes at Forum, the role of SFG, where thousands of students would appear in the morning, as well as the simulator, which simulates every candidate through the previous year's questions, as well as the FRC. Every questions we have, I could say 60% of the questions we have discussed already, or we have given you the hint that questions will appear around the corner. The only aspect was, can you keep your temperament within the exam and can you read between the lines? So let's begin the discussion. If we see, you see the pattern, 17, 21, 19, 16. So more or less, you see the boundary is 15. So I would say the environment has become an undeniable subject for clearing prelims. You cannot neglect environment for prelims. Okay, because we all know Indian Forest Services exam selection will also be through the same process. Let's begin it. Consider the following. How many of them contain plastics? Now you see, in this question, I have told you 1,000 times during SFG, this last year plus PYQ plus FRC. If you see, we discussed last year question of chewing gum. And I told you that again, plastic pollution is bound to occur. Okay. So now let us see how to solve this question. First, cigarette butts. If you would have read the article, there was an article that suggested that the cigarette butts are indeed becoming a source of pollution. So why is it becoming a source of pollution? This means they are non-biodegradable. This means there must be certain elements of plastic. One of the studies suggests that there are 15,000 microplastics in the cigarette butts. So yes, one is there. Eyeglasses lenses. You see, plastic lenses are more durable. So you see, those customers who needs durability in their objects, they prefer plastics lenses. They are mostly made up of either CR39 or polycarbonate. And car tires. You see, why did they ask car tires? You see, if you go and read the environment UNEP site, there they will say that the tire industry has bypassed the eyes of the policymakers as they are contributing 28% of the total microplastics in the world. So indeed 28% is very high. So the examiner was very clever to put car tires here. And you see, still after knowing all these aspects, I'll tell you it's very difficult to understand in the exam whether to say yes or no. Which one? Yes, no, yes, no. But you see, I gave you the mantra. If all are there in C option, and in such questions, always go with all of them. Do not put your mind. And you see, the answer is C. Moving to the next question. Consider the following substances. Coal gasification technology. You see, coal gasification technology has been covered under FRC plus foundation classes. We know the coal gasification technology, the gases released are main plus CO2, methane plus water. These are the gases that are released. Okay, so basically what we do, we create synthetic natural gas. So remember, it is done to create synthetic natural gas. And if the foundation students, as well as the students from FRC who have studied, if you remember, natural gas plays a very critical role in the formation of fertilizers. And the government promoted the fertilizer industries to shift from naphtha to the usage of natural gas as their primary ingredient. Okay, basic input. So yes, urea is there. And ethanol, yes, ethanol is another item that can be produced through the usage of coal gasification technology. But here, if you remember, or if you would have heard somewhere, nitroglycerin is nothing but an explosive liquid. It is created by fuming nitric acid. And it has nothing to do with coal gasification technology, or that is natural gas. Here the main ingredient to answer the question was natural gas. So yes, this can be used for creation of ethanol and this can be used for creation of urea. So the answer is going to be only 2. Next question. Activated carbon. You see, this question has been taken from the Hindu, an article from the Hindu. Okay? Is a good as an attractive tool to remove pollutants from effluent streams and to remediate contaminants from various industries. If you see this question, you see what are activated carbon. Activated carbon is nothing but derived from carbonaceous materials. Carbonaceous material means those having high carbon content. Like you see, coconut husk, coir, oil, wood, or you can say sugarcane bagasse. It all can be created. It can be created from carbonaceous materials. So what are activated carbons? You see, what we do, activated carbons are created through processes, physical and chemical. In physical, the first process is carbonization. In carbonization, what is done is that the percentage of carbon is increased through the process of pyrolysis. That is, burning in limited oxygen in order to remove the volatile substances that, from the carbon. So once the percentage of carbon is increased, then they are moved to the second process of oxidation. So yes, activated carbon can be easily synthesized from environmental waste with high carbon content. Yes, this is true. Why it is being used as a remedial measures or remediate contaminants? Because you see, the activated carbon has so many pores, and these pores increases the surface area. And we know as the surface area increases, what happens? The pollutants can enter the surface area. That is, the surface can absorb various metals such as chromium, copper, zinc, lead. Okay, so yes, exhibits a large surface area and a strong potential for adsorbing. Adsorbing means absorbing the metals at the surface, and to remediate contaminants from various industries. So here you see, this is explaining why they are being used for removal of contaminants or pollutants, because they have large surface area. So yes, this explains, and both the statements are true, are correct, and not both of them cannot explain, I think, but only one of them explains the statement one. It is not this statement, it is just talking about how activated carbon can be easily. Now you see, it could be a confusing. Now since it is saying it can be easily synthesized, since easily synthesized, can I say it has become an attractive tool? No. Just because easily synthesis does not mean it has this property. It is because of this property that it exhibits a large surface area and has a huge potential for adsorbing, it has become an attractive tool. Okay, so the answer we are giving here is only one of them explains. Next. Here you see they're talking about cement industry. Cement industry has been discussed as one of the most polluting industries under the FRC discussions. Okay, here you see. It is saying more studies indicate from account for more than 5%. So it is also giving you the leverage of more than 5%. And it is saying studies indicate. It is not even implying to any specific aspect. So yes, go with the statement. Do not go with the convention that the digits are wrong. The statement is saying that it is giving you enough liberty. Yes, it contributes close to 8% of the global carbon emissions as per the World Economic Forum. So how is it created? We know limestone. Limestone is converted into lime, that is calcium hydroxide. And it is in this process that enough of CO2 is released. This is one of the most polluting process. So you see, limestone is converted into clinker. What is clinker? Clinker is mixture of 75% limestone, 25% clay, plus gypsum. Okay, so yes, the process of creation of limestone into clinker is one of the most polluting. So this one is explaining this, and both are correct. Silica bearing clay is mixed with limestone while manufacturing cement. Yes, this clay contains silica plus aluminium. The amount of silica and aluminium in the process is given through either clay, shale, or slate. Okay? So if you see, this is also correct, but only one of them explains. But only one of them explains statement 1. So again, the answer is going to be B. Moving next. 28th United, it has been done in Dubai, UAE. The Declaration on Climate and Health, it talks about decarbonizing the health sector in order to mitigate the climate change. And this COP28 is a binding declaration. This is wrong. It is not a binding declaration. In fact, the whole negotiation of Declaration on Health has been outside the framework of UNFCCC. Okay, and it is voluntary, non-binding political commitments. So this is wrong. If India's health sector is decarbonized, the resilience of the health sector may be compromised. Yes, India did not sign this declaration because we know in the coming times, we need more hospitals. And as India is a tropical country, the average temperature is rising. So we will also need more cooling systems. So we know with more cooling systems, more emission of greenhouse gases and more demand of electricity, more greenhouse gases emission. Thus, India did not sign it. But here we know we have got a winner. Once we know in statements, if we find a one statement wrong, we are done with it. But only one of them, only one of the statements 2 and 3 is correct. And that explains statement 1. So yes, the answer is going to be 3. This explains statement 1, refrained, why India refrained from signing the declaration, and this is wrong. Okay, next. Scientific studies suggest that a shift is taking place in the Earth's rotation axis. Yes, this is an article. There was huge discussion on this article. Earlier, we used to think various factors. But soon we realized that the shift is taking place because of human-made factors. Over-extraction of groundwater in the temperate regions and in the northwestern part of India, what has done? It has resulted into shift in its axis. Okay, this is the main reason. Now, we know this is correct. Solar flares and associated coronal mass ejections bombarded the Earth's outermost layer with tremendous amount of energy. Yes, we know. These are Van Allen belt radiation belts. We know the sun, the coronal mass ejection. The coronal mass ejection bombards the outer atmosphere with tremendous amount of energy. However, only a minuscule portion enters the inner portion where we see aurora borealis or austral borealis. So yes, we are taking this statement as also true. Now coming to the third statement. It is saying, now this statement is conceptual. Now this statement is conceptual. How this is conceptual? You see. Now consider this is Earth. This is the axis. Now majority of the ice is situated here. We know Earth's, there is conservation of angular momentum, that is moment of inertia. Now we know if you have seen a skater, if a skater wants to spin fast, the skater will pull its hand within the axis and then the skater can spin fast. If the skater has to slow down its movement, the skater will take the hand away from the axis and thus the skater will slow down. So now you see Earth is moving with omega. Now consider that majority of this will melt and ice will melt and will move towards the equator. This means a majority of the portion will now come away from the axis. This means as the mass is moving away from the axis, the speed, the omega dash is going to slow down. So omega dash is going to slow down. So yes, this explains this statement. A shift is taking place in the Earth's rotational axis. Though the reason is, the main reason for is extraction of water, but this too explains. It is not saying that this is happening only because of which. If this is happening, climate change too is playing a very critical role. Okay, so both the factors, that is climate change as a factor as well as extraction of groundwater, both have played critical role, and here they are talking about the role of climate change. So here the answer is going to be, but only one of them explains the statement. Moving ahead. Article 6, you see this question has been directly, we have discussed this question in simulator plus FRC plus PYQ, not PYQ, in SFG discussion. So people who participated in these two test series are going to benefit immensely from this question. Okay, here you see Article 6, it talks about collaboration between countries in order to meet the intended nationally determined contributions as agreed under Paris Agreement. So if you see Article 6, it is 6.2, 6.4, 6.8. 6.2 talks about trading of carbon credits. How to trade carbon credits between countries. So Article 6 creates principles and talks about various rules and guidance that countries needs to follow in order to trade carbon credits. 6.4 talks about creation of international carbon market mechanism. And 6.8 talks about non-market approaches in order to achieve mitigation and adaptation. So we know is frequently discussed in global discussion. Yes, and climate change, we know UNFCCC, it is Article 6 of the Paris Agreement on climate change sets out the principles of carbon markets. Yes, we have seen. And Article 6 on climate change intends to promote inter-country non-market strategies. Yes, it is talking here in under 6.8. So yes, a very good question, and it has been, if candidates would remember the discussion, it is going to help them immensely, because this question forum has asked already in simulator and SFG. So you see the answer is going to be here, A. Next. Nature Solutions Finance Hub. So you see, this is a question. Now this is a difficult question. Either you know or you don't know. You can't do anything about it. But here you see, what was the generic convention we have talked? If a question is one-liner, and if you don't know, the best version is to go with AA. And the first time you see, the convention will pay you off, +2. Okay, so here you see, the ADB has launched this finance hub in order to promote conservation of biodiversity as well as promote climate resiliency. So here you can't, either you know or you don't know, but I wish candidates would have gone through as per the convention if you are in the state of doubts. Moving ahead. With reference to direct air capture, you see this I have taught you exhaustively. In FRC I have taught you. I have taught you in PRRC. Plus I have also taught you this concept exhaustively in PYQ. I have told you for UPSC has a tendency to ask questions from carbon capture. And you see this is a question of carbon capture. Direct air capture is nothing but it is talking about carbon capture. Direct carbon capture means this could be captured from any other place, any place on the globe. And we have seen there are various methods: geological sequestration, biological sequestration, technological sequestration. We have already seen 3. So yes, it can be used as a way. And you see it is already saying can. It can be a valuable approach for plastic production. Why it is saying valuable approach for plastic production? You see, do not get confused here in exam. It is not saying that this technology will help you in producing plastic. No. Valuable approach in the sense that we know plastic production is a highly polluting industry. Using this technology, we can reduce the greenhouse gas emissions from plastic production, and thus a valuable approach. Similarly, in the aviation sector, the carbon captured either could be stored in geological formations, or the captured carbon can be utilized with green hydrogen to create synthetic aviation fuels. So it can be a source. Do not, and okay. So here you see can, and capture. And another convention which I have taught you, if 1, 2, and 3 are there in C option, and even if you are confused, all the signs are signaling us towards ticked C. Free plus 2 marks. Okay? Next. Regarding peacock tarantula. Now this is a question out of the book. Now from where, how can I say peacock tarantula? But you see, while discussing environment during our discussions in FRC and PYQ, you see I have discussed spiders. And we have discussed crustaceans. I have told you what are crustaceans: hard outer shell, having multiple legs, and those that lives in water, like you see shrimps, lobsters, okay, barnacles, crabs. So from here, one, we have come to know that it cannot be a crustacean, it is arachnid. Spiders, termites, mites, they all are arachnids. So with this one, I have come to know one is wrong. With this, I have come to know that 2 is already correct. So despite being only here, I am not going to get afraid. This question is assisting me in not eliminating the option B. Okay? But we know the convention generally says that eliminate only. But yes, it is true. It is only found in the deciduous forest of Andhra Pradesh in the Eastern Ghats. And it is critically endangered under the IUCN status. And it is purely beautiful color, completely bluish in nature. Okay? Now you see. Now, but still we know we have a hurdle. C. In its natural habitat, it is an arboreal species. Now you see, if you have seen spiders, we generally see they are hanging from the walls, or they are hanging from the trees. Or if you have seen the movie Harry Potter, you will see that once the scene comes, all the spiders hangs from the upside down. This means they are generally falling from the trees. So from that very natural sense of environment, what we perceive on a daily basis, I can say that yes, they are arboreal species. So from this, I can take D as the option. So now you see this question is a mixture of knowledge, PYQ. We have discussed these in base. We have told you spiders could be a possible question, but instead of spiders, they have given you tarantula. Knowledge plus now usage of my daily observation. Now the answer is D. Coming back, CO2. Now this is a question which is a bit, you see, I have taken International Energy Agency data. It is 1.77 ton carbon CO2 per capita, so this is wrong. In terms of CO2 emissions, India ranks second. We know there is a country with equal population, that is China. And we know China has large number of vehicles and industries. So yes, China is going to be first. So it is second. Electricity and heat producers are the largest sources of CO2. Yes, it is close to 53%. Okay, then comes industry. Industry is close to 25%. Second is industry. Okay, so here we see first is wrong, 2 and 3 are correct. Moving ahead. This is a bit difficult question, yet let us solve how to do it. Cassava woody shrub, yes. It is grown in tropical and subtropical regions. Ginger is a herb with pseudostem. Pseudostem means the leaves of the ginger, they fold and it looks like a stem. So we are calling it pseudostem, and it is a herb, perennial herb. Malabar spinous, herbaceous climber, perennial herbaceous climber. It looks like this, pointed leaves, alternately it will be placed. It is very thick and dark green in color. Now here you see mint, we know cannot be a shrub, it is a herb. And papaya is not a shrub, it is a tree as per Botanica. So we know with this we are going only 3. This could be a difficult question. Okay, this is a difficult question in the paper. Whatever other teachers, faculties or students say, solving this question could be difficult, because I could guarantee only few of will know papaya is a woody shrub, or to know that it is a climber. This climber, spinach to be a climber was a very confusing option. Okay. Next. Rainforests produce more oxygen than the produced by oceans. Wrong. We know oceans produce close to 70% of the oxygen, and rainforests produce close to 28% of the oxygen. Marine phytoplankton and photosynthetic bacteria, yes, this is true. So with this, once I have come to know that 2 is correct, 1 is wrong, I know we have got the answer B. Contains several folds. You see, well oxygenated surface water, you see what oxygen is sparingly soluble in water. So it can never be several folds. Again, you see question, several folds. And once we know water, in water itself, oxygen is sparingly soluble. So again, you see the answer is going to be B here. Moving next. You see, this is a factual question, but yet I can guess it here. It is saying among USA and Brazil, Brazil is the largest producer of ethanol. We know India is striving hard to produce ethanol. India has come up with national bioethanol policy, ethanol blending program. So from here also we know America is highly advanced nation, highly sophisticated technologies, and ethanol production demands first technology. Okay. Then and huge land where you can cultivate crops, which can be diverted towards cultivation of bioethanol. Brazil has so much of Amazonian forest, and Brazil has come under intense pressure from the international community when they were diverting the Amazonian forest towards cultivation of crops. So now here you see, yes, USA is the largest producer, so this is wrong. They together produce 80% of the total ethanol in the world. From USA, it is basically corn, and for Brazil, as it says, it is generally sugarcane. Okay, so the answer we know here is statement 1 is not correct. Next, the World Bank is talking about wet bulb temperature. You see, what is the wet bulb temperature? Take a bulb, put a wet cloth around it, and then you measure the temperature. This is wet bulb temperature. So now what does it mean? It means that the minimum temperature beyond which, okay, the air cannot be cooled by increasing the rate of evaporation, okay, at constant pressure. This means it is saying that there will come a time beyond at which the temperature of the air will not go beyond 35 degrees centigrade, whatever you do. Even if the temperature is rising and there is enough evaporation from the lakes, rivers, water bodies, but the temperature will not drop below 35 degrees centigrade. This is what they are saying. This is a question that has been taken from an article from Live Mint. They have talked about this. This was one of the report which came by World Bank in 2023. So this question has been asked from 2 years back. So yes, the peninsular India will most likely suffer. Yes. We know as the temperatures will rise, more evaporation, tropical cyclones will increase, more evaporation, tropical cyclones, flooding of the coastal regions. So yes, coastal flooding. The survival of animals, including humans, will be affected as shedding of their body heat through perspiration becomes difficult. Yes, this is the most dangerous thing. We perspire and then we cool our body, but once the wet bulb temperature increases, we will not be even able to cool our body. So here the answer is going to be C. Next. So here again I'll say conceptual and based on the basic understanding. So if candidates you are preparing, start loving nature. Not just because it is you have to clear the examination. It is the nature through which we will survive on this planet. You, your family, your friends, everyone. So this is what UPSC is asking you. Start looking nature nearby nature. Okay. I could guarantee you only 20% of the question was based on a bit of concepts. But whatever question, however I have maneuvered, it is all because I have felt the environment. Okay. Now moving to geography. You see, now geography is playing a very critical role. Earlier, you see 4, 9, 9, 16, 18, 12. Now you see this. Earlier, people used to leave geography, but now you see geography average number is increasing. So do not leave geography. One basic word, if you want to master geography, do not leave NCERT. NCERT is the basic foundation. Okay, do not take it for granted that coming from graduation, why to read NCERT? Read it. Coming next. India has joined this whole question you see has come directly from the handout of ForumIAS. Whole handout of foundation, human and economic geography classes, handout in the PYQ classes, handout in the FRC classes. I have explicitly asked candidates that you see security mineral partnership will come. Ministry of Mines has listed 30 minerals. It is those 30 minerals. And while asking, I have to ask them, circle exclusively. And you see all these three statements in one question. I have told them, minerals are becoming important. And this year they have asked 3 questions from minerals. Yes, India became 14th partnership after COVID-19 pandemic. Countries came to know that they cannot be dependent on China, as China can arm twist nations. China has already banned germanium, gallium, and antimony their export to USA. So you see, Ministry of Mines listed out 30 critical minerals. Here you're seeing it has resource in all. All is a deadly word. If India would be rich in all 30 critical minerals, why are we dependent on China then for semiconductors and all other aspects? Okay? This is wrong. And we know in 2023 Act, what this legislation did, amendment, they omitted 6 atomic minerals from the list. Okay, and then the central government has been explicitly and exclusively empowered to auction mining leases for these certain minerals. What are those certain minerals? 6 atomic minerals. Very good question. Only 1 and 3 is the answer. Next. How many countries passes through? Now this is a tricky question. Here you see, this is Colombia, Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, Argentina. It does not crosses through Brazil. This is Brazil. It does not crosses Paraguay, Uruguay. Uruguay, Paraguay, Brazil, it does not crosses. So Bolivia it does. Colombia, Ecuador. So we have the answer. Only 4. Next. This is again difficult question. Geography, mapping. They have picked 1 lakes from all. Patos Lagoon is located here. Lake Tonle Sap is in Cambodia, here. And Lake Tanganyika is here. I personally in class have taught Lake Tanganyika. These 2 are new names. So this is a bit difficult question. Answer is going to be none of them. Next. You see this question, they have already asked this question in simulator. They have already asked this question in SFG. Because in January 2025, government came up with Turmeric Board of India. India is the largest producer, consumer and exporter. 70% of the world's production comes from India. You see, the PIB says that the minister informed the Lok Sabha that there are total 30 varieties of turmeric. But here you see they are saying more than 30. We are considering it correct. Because you see in India, the traditional knowledges are yet to be identified. We know we have yet not explored the complete India. So yes, there can be more than 30 varieties which in future can be discovered. And if you see the states that produces, Maharashtra, Telangana, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, these are some of the largest producer states. So yes, I am going for this. I would say UPSC would consider D as the correct answer. Next. Continental drift. Now this is very easy. The belt of ancient rocks from now this foundation teaches this concept holistically. This is NCERT 2. If you have read NCERT and if you have attended foundation classes, you can solve this question easily. The belt of ancient rocks from Brazil coast matches with those of Western Africa. Yes, we know. This is plateau of Borborema. This is plateau of Borborema. Here is Fauta Zalon mountain. Now, yes, the rocks have structural characteristics. Then we know it is talking about placer deposit. NCERT explicitly talks about placer deposits. If we have found the gold, okay, deposits in Ghana, but we have not found the deposit of Ghana, only gold pieces. So where is the deposit? The deposit of gold lies in the Brazil. And yes, the Gondwana system of sediments from India is known to have its counterpart in 6 different land masses of the southern hemisphere. Yes, you see, South America, Falkland Island, Africa, Madagascar, Australia, all these counterparts in the southern hemisphere have sediments from the Gondwana system. And again you see 1, 2, 3 is in C. The convention says if 1, 2, 3 is in C, go with C. Now this is a question directly from simulator and SFG, and we have discussed this question in detail. It is saying if you see the diagram, here you see, here the trade winds comes, here it rises, and here the wind subsides. We know here when the wind subsides, there is adiabatic compression. Because of this adiabatic compression, the wind becomes drier and hot. As a result, you see what will happen. Here there is intensive rainfall. There is cumulonimbus clouds. Here there is formation of cumulonimbus clouds. As a result, the rainfall takes away the sand particles. So yes, this question is true. Subtropical and temperate will have more dust particles as compared to equator and poles. Poles, we know there is formation of ice particles. It is all around the dust particles. But what is the reason? Subtropical and temperate areas have less dry winds. Now here you see, it is talking about less dry winds, but we have seen in the diagram, the winds are descending, which means adiabatic compression, which means it will heat up the air. So it is not less dry, it is more dry, and thus more dust particles. So the answer is going to be C. Moving, this is a PYQ. We have discussed this question in ForumIAS PYQ discussion. It has been taught in foundation classes, and it is again a question from NCERT. I am telling you again, geography, they have picked NCERT, and they are asking questions from there. Current environment, they have picked articles from the newspapers, various reports, and then they have tried to create questions out of it. But the questions are conceptual. Even if you don't know the reports, you need not worry. The only point was whether am I ready to control my emotion that I don't know, that I have not read the report, yet I have the ability to learn, because we at ForumIAS have taught you the meaning of application of logic and understanding while solving questions in FRC, in PYQ, in simulator, as well as in SFG. Again, here you see, okay? Now here you see, consider this is a land, this is a water. We know during winter, it is saying January in northern hemisphere is winter. We know land gets more cool down quickly because of it has higher specific heat, lower specific heat than water. Water takes more time to either cool down or either warm. Okay. So now here you see, with this I can say that if this is a 10 degrees centigrade isotherm and this isotherm is moving, but when it comes to encounter the land, I know land is more cool. So here how 10 degree? Here 9 degree will be there. Okay, so I can say that this is how 9 degree isotherms are there. And the 10 degree isotherm will be like this. Similarly, if I am looking for 8 degree isotherm, 8 degree isotherm is going to be here. Okay, for 9 degree it is 8 because land is cooler. In here it is 9, in land the same, here it is 8 degree centigrade. So equatorward, it bends equatorward on land and it bends polewards over the oceans. Yes. You see, in exam you were supposed to apply this. You were not supposed to give up the question if you don't know. You could have applied if I am drawing isotherms, land is more colder. So why 10 degree isotherm is going to be parallel? It has to be some other place. And why it is? Because the air over the oceans are warmer, because we know the difference in the specific heat. UPSC has asked this question and this question as an assertion and reason. So this is a complete PYQ. If you are faltering here, this means you have yet not understood the importance of PYQ for clearing prelims. We know the answer is going to be A. Here you see, clay. Clay is an aquitard. Clay is an aquitard. It is highly porous. It is highly porous, but least permeable. Why it is least permeable? Now consider this is one particle, this is one particle. First, the cohesive forces between the two particles are very less, whereas the cohesive forces between the water and this surface is more. So water does not tend to move this side. So first, before this, let me tell you what is porous and what is permeability. Porosity is the ability to hold water. One particle hold water. And what is permeability? The ability to let the water flow between various particles. Okay? And these two doubts we have discussed in detail while I was teaching you all. The difference between porosity and permeability in the foundation classes as well as in the SFG discussions. So here we know it is saying clay is not at all porous. This is wrong. Statement 3 is wrong. Clay is highly porous but least permeable. Chalk is porous and hence can absorb water. Yes. Chalk is highly porous and highly permeable. Okay. So here you see chalk is porous but we know here clay is not at all porous. So only one of the statement 2 and 3 is correct, and that explains statement 1. Here you see both statement 1 and 2 are correct and both of them explain this cannot be true. Both statements are correct, this cannot be true. We know statement 3 is wrong. Neither statement 2 nor statement 3 is correct. This is wrong, we know 2 is correct. So now we are left with only C. But you see it is not explaining this whole statement. Statement 2 is not explaining statement 1 in complete sense, but there are no other options. So we are going with C. Next. Without the atmosphere, temperature would be well below freezing point everywhere. First trap word I have caught on the Earth's surface. Why will it be freezing everywhere? During daytime, the temperature will rise. You see, if you see moon does not have atmosphere. So during daytime, the temperature can rise as far as 120 degrees centigrade. So this is wrong. And these two we know are PYQ. We know greenhouse gases, CO2. It is transparent to incoming short wave radiation, but trap the outgoing long wave radiation and thus maintains the average temperature of the radiation close to 14 degrees centigrade. So here you see only 2 and 3 are correct. Only 2 and 3 are correct. Next. How many of the above countries have more than 4 time zones? Now this is a tricky question. Now if you have the notion that if a country is small, then it will have less number of time zones, and if the country are wide, it will have more number of time zones. It is true. But you also need to keep in mind that some countries also have offshore islands, like you see UK. UK has Falkland Island. UK has Diego Garcia in Indian Ocean. UK has some islands in the Pacific Ocean. So now you see UK is going to have more than, it has total 9. Denmark has 5 because Denmark has Greenland. New Zealand has 5. Australia has 9. Brazil has 4. So the answer is going to be only 4. This is a good question. You see, they have asked questions on timeline and international dateline, the first chapter of G.C. Leong. Okay, these two questions are from the first two chapters of G.C. Leong. Basic NCERT. Here you see, they are saying, we know this is international dateline. This is USA. This is Australia. This is, sorry, Siberia, which is here is Anadir. And this is Alaska. So now we know if I go back, if you see a circle, and if this is one line, we know the other line is GMT. The other line is GMT. So now we know at GMT, let us keep 10 a.m. Monday. We know if I move from GMT to international dateline, there will be total of plus 12 hours. And if I move back from here, there will be total of minus 12 hours. So if it is 10 a.m. Monday, it is a.m., it is going to be 10 p.m. Monday here at Anadir. And in USA, yes, it is going to be 10 a.m. Sunday. When people are waking up and getting, would be different days. Yes, we are seeing there will be different days. When it is Monday in Anadir, it is Tuesday in Nome. Now we are seeing that if it is Monday, the Alaska is 1 day back. So if it is Monday in Anadir, it has to be Sunday in Nome, not Tuesday. So answer is going to be A. You see, this I have said it 1,000 times during PYQ discussion, SFG and FRC. Diamond is going to come, nickel is going to come, gold is going to come. Gold didn't come, but you see, all came. Russia is the largest producer, Botswana is the second largest. Chile, we know, lithium triangle, Bolivia, Argentina, Chile, Indonesia, nickel is the Indonesia is the largest producer of nickel. So the answer is going to be all three. So with this, I wind up the discussion, and I again tell you, and both subjects demand basic clarity of concepts. So do not take them lightly. Look for those where you can find the proper concepts here. And here at Forum, we have ensured that the candidates at FRC, PYQ, SFG, simulators understand the nuances of logical reasoning in attempting the papers. So with this, wish you all the best. I hope we all get to see each other during the mains discussion. Thank you.
ठीक है. So welcome back. The next subject which we are going to discuss is polity, governance, and IR. And I would like to welcome Kanish Tomar sir. Sir, please join us.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
So, sir, your quick words about the question paper related to polity and governance IR.
Polity and IR, especially, I think, was on the expected lines. I think problem solving and quick thinking would have been really handy for the students. Largely, if they have concentrated on their bare act and their standard resources, I think they'll be able to manage most of the questions. And I think our treasury, especially at ForumIAS, there were few questions, especially interestingly, we were having this open test, simulator open test.
Yes.
So there were directly 2 questions from that.
Yeah, even I was, I was going through some questions. I found ki I have seen those questions already.
Yeah.
And it was like I was right because I saw those questions in our test series also. So, what's your what kind of questions students may expect in upcoming years? How the pattern of polity and governance is changing? Any quick words about it?
I think the pattern regarding polity and governance has largely been consistent about that you have to concentrate on your standard resources. Standard has to be, for any subject, standard has to be the foundation. And if you have good foundation, then you can, of course, go ahead and attempt the application part of the subject. So naturally, keep your resources limited and ensure that you are revising and making iterations time and again for standard subjects. I think that would be the biggest suggestion. One more suggestion would be the application part. Whenever you are reading current affairs, be curious about things. Be curious that what is this? If we are talking about Russia-Ukraine war, so it is your responsibility to talk about that. Okay, this is a conflict. That what is the origin of this conflict? Then what is NATO? What has been the evolution? So that all these questions, all these curious questions, helps you ultimately on the D-Day.
So day to day, whatever things are happening around us, we should be, more watchful about. We should be more watchful about them. Like some questions are asked, like what is RTGS and what is NEFT, and these things we do. No, generally in day to day life, we happen to see them, but not just no. The seeing is not important. No, is not enough. We have to be more curious, and we should be digging more information about those things which are happening around us. ठीक है. With these words, sir, this is
Thank you so
this
much,
podium
sir.
is all yours. Thank you.
Sir. All right, students, let's start with polity and IR portion. Before starting with the question, the first thing would be the pattern. Yes, we have been noticing a consistent pattern, especially in polity, that there is a consistency of around 15 questions are generally asked from polity. So it continues to be the major subject, not just for mains, but also for prelims. You would see some variation, but it is not a huge variation. It may have gone up, it may have gone a little down, but it is not that it is 1 or 2 questions or it is 25-30 questions. So it continues to remain a very relevant subject and interesting also, because it is all related to current affairs. All right, with that, let's start with the discussion. Question 51. It is about panchayats. Yes, 73rd constitutional amendment. Let's have a look at the statements directly. I'll not be going into the details of the topics, that what is the static portion, and keep highlighting what are we looking at. I think I'm hopeful that many of you would have got this highlighted for yourselves, ultimately, which would have helped you for getting the right answer. Talking about panchayats at the intermediate level exist in all states. At the pretext, it might appear correct, but Article 243B specifically talks about panchayats, and in clause 1 it says that panchayat should be, of course, I'm paraphrasing that, it should be at 3 levels: village level, intermediate level, and district level. But with clause 2 it specify if the population is less than 20 lakhs. For any state, if the population is less than 20 lakhs, then there is no need for the middle level, the intermediate level. So we know that the first statement is an extreme statement. We have an exception already, so this is incorrect. So if we eliminate this, we have already, okay, we are looking for not correct. So it is 1B is eliminated. Then to be eligible to be a member of panchayat, one should attain the age of 30 years. Again, this is the age for Rajya Sabha. And for local bodies, it is 21 years. We all know that. That is the reason we call the local bodies as the youth bodies. So it is also incorrect. So we have eliminated 1 and 2 already. So if we eliminate this and this as well, just a second. If we eliminate, 1 should be there and 2 should also be there, right? So this is also eliminated. So either answer is this or answer is this. So ultimately now we'll have to go for the third statement also. Third statement is talking about Article 243I, which talks about Finance Commission. Yes, State Finance Commission to be very specific. And it has to be established by the governor, not the chief minister. As simple as that. So we have got all 3 as incorrect. D would be the right answer. Yes, in this question, I think elimination didn't help much. Then talking about question 58. And the theme here is Lokpal. Now for such questions, there would be that you would have gone through the standard chapters from your standard resources. But at the same time, it would be helpful if you have a look directly at the bare act, the law itself, that will help you. For example, the first statement, when we talk about that, it applies to whom? The part 1 of the bare act itself specifically talks that it applies to public servants who are working in and outside India. So not outside is incorrect. Make sense? So can we eliminate something? We are looking at correct statement. If we eliminate one, not getting much from the elimination here also. Chairperson and members of Lokpal, we know that chairperson can be a CGI, serving or retired, can be a judge of Supreme Court, can be an eminent person also. Yes, again, serving retired, or any eminent person. Now the second statement, the first part is all right. It should not be a member of parliament, should not be an MLA, MLC or MP. But the second part where it says only the Chief Justice of India should be the chairman. This is problematic because we have some other options open. This is again incorrect. Third is chairperson on members shall not be person of less than 45 years. When we look at the person who are not allowed, one is of course MP, MLAs and MLCs and even the local bodies. Local bodies, these are also not eligible for this post. Secondly, if you have been convicted of moral turpitude, then also you are not eligible. If you have been removed or dismissed from the services of union or state, then also you are not eligible. And you are also not eligible if your age is less than 45. And this is where the statement comes in, where it is saying that not be a person of less than 45 years of age on the date of assuming. That is the exact statement from the bare act. So we have third is correct. Do we have third only? Yes. So this is the probable answer. Let's have a look at the fourth also. Lokpal can inquire into allegations, cannot inquire into allegation, wherein we are talking about sitting prime minister. Again, the act itself talk about that it is applicable who is the member or who has been a member. So both present and formal. So it is again incorrect. We have A as the right answer here. Makes sense? Quickly moving forward. Question 66. Again, pardoning power of the president. We know that pardoning power is under Article 72, wherein different powers, remission, reprieve, commutation, etc. have been provided to the president, and same powers have been, similar powers if not same, to the governor also. First statement is talking about exercise of this power by the president can be subjected to limited judicial review. Now a lot of confusion is surrounding around limited judicial review, but interestingly Supreme Court has provided in 𝐮𝐻𝐸 case. 𝐮𝐻𝐸 case, it has provided a couple of things, out of which important ones are, first of all, that it is not a discretionary power. It has to be based on the recommendation, aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. Secondly, it said that judicial review should be on the basis of the judgment in Maruram case, 1980. And this case provided that if at all the judgment of the president is arbitrary, is discriminatory, is irrational, then judiciary can come in. Yes, so these are the only grounds. Therefore, it is called as limited judicial review. So this statement is absolutely correct. The president can exercise this power without the advice? No. Specifically provided by the Supreme Court. So we are looking for correct. Only one would be the right statement here. A would be the right option. Then 67th, we have three statements, and the theme here is broadly related to Speaker and the Lok Sabha. Dissolution of the House of People, the Lok Sabha, the Speaker shall not vacate. That is what we know. This is actually directly taken from the Constitution. Article 94, last line specifically provides for this. That is the reason it is important not just to read your standard book, but also the Constitution, because the wordings can be confusing at times. But if you are referring to the Constitution time and again, those wordings will provide you all the confidence you need. So shall not vacate, yes, because it is a continuous office and till there is a speaker pro tem who will be helpful in providing for oaths of the newly elected house, the MPs. Then from within there will be an election and they'll elect a new speaker, and the date for the speaker is decided by, election of the speaker is provided by the president. Yes, so shall not vacate until immediately before the first meeting of the House of People after the dissolution, without a doubt, yes. According to the provision of the Constitution, now an MP from House of People, that is the Lok Sabha, on being elected shall resign. The problem lies in shall resign. So in Britain it is shall, but when we are talking about India, it is optional. Rather, anti-defection law, the 10th schedule provides that there will be certain exceptions for disqualification if at all they resign or not resign, the speaker and the deputy speaker as well. All right, so shall resign is problematic. So we have, let's have a look at the elimination. Can we do that? Second is eliminated and we are looking at correct. First is there. Second is eliminated. So we already have our answer as 1 and 3. We don't have to look at the statement 3 even. Let's have a look still. Speaker may be removed by a resolution. We know that he can be removed by a resolution, and that has to be supported by, moved unless supported by majority of all the then members. This is what the Constitution calls as effective majority. It does not use the term effective, but it always explains effective as majority of all the then members irrespective of vacancies. So of course this is correct. There should be a 14-day notice as well. We have our answer as C. Moving forward, 68th question. Now it is again about anti-defection law, 10th schedule. Let's have a look at the statement. If I want to provide a background, it was introduced by 52nd Constitutional Amendment. Yes, and it provided for certain changes in Article 75 also. Yes, it added clause 1B, wherein the disqualification were also added in Article 102 as well. A lot many changes it made. So if at all there is a question regarding whether a member of House of People, that is an MP from Lok Sabha, has been subject to disqualification, then whose decision would be final? It will not be the president but the speaker, naturally, because we are talking about House of People. If at all it is House of the council, the Rajya Sabha, then ultimately it is decided by the chairman. So the presiding officer is the final authority. Until the case of 𝐼𝐞𝐽, their judgment was final, whatever they decided, but now it is open to judicial review as well. So we have first as incorrect and we are looking at correct. Second is there is no mention of political party. The problem is originally it was not mentioned, but the 10th schedule, that is what we are talking about, the disqualification on the 10th schedule. If you join a political party, if you leave a political party, nominated member, yes, independent member. So of course they talk about political party now. Yes, so we have no mention is problematic. Again, we have a mention now. So we have neither as correct. D would be the right answer here. Then we are talking about two statements. State government has no power, and here we are talking about grant of concessions in respect of minor minerals. You would have discussed this question or similar question related to minerals in your geography environment questions also. But about minor minerals, the definition, etc. have been provided under Mines and Minerals Regulation and Development Act of 1957. And within this, under section 3, it provides for the definition of what is minor mineral and also lists down couple of minor minerals like ordinary sand, ordinary clay, etc. Plus, it provides that there can be other minor mineral also as and when notified by the central government. Yes. So this provides for the second statement. Central government has the power to notify minor minerals under the law. So we already have the second statement as correct. However, in the forthcoming sections, it also provides or empowers the state government to provide for rules for mining concessions, for any grants related to it. So state government is empowered. The first statement is saying state government has no power regarding the rules. So this is incorrect. We have first as incorrect. So the answer would be D. Yes, the second is correct. All right, moving ahead to 81st question. With reference to Indian polity, we have 3 statements regarding ordinance, very static portion. But interestingly, again, it is not just static, it will be application based also. There would be confusion, especially regarding second statement. Can amend any central act or previous ordinance also, of course, that is the objective. What is an ordinance? We know that ordinance is a temporary power provided to the president, temporary legislative power provided in the hands of president or the governor in case of state. Now it provides that whatever legislative power the legislature has, that is provided to the president. So ordinance has all the powers of an act, of a law of the legislature. So of course by a law we can amend any previous law. So of course by ordinance we can also do that. So this is correct. But interestingly, when we are talking about a law, can a law abridge a fundamental right? A law under Article 13, we know what is the definition or ambit of law. It cannot abridge any fundamental right, and that is the reason it provides for judicial review. Yes, not explicit but implicit power of judicial review under Article 13. And within this article, it also explains, among other things, that this law includes ordinances as well. Ordinances, laws, bylaws, notification, legislature, executive actions, etc. However, it is under clause 4 provided that it is not applicable to constitutional amendments. By constitutional amendment, you might make certain changes to fundamental rights. For example, 44th Amendment, we removed the fundamental right to property. But that has to be done through a constitutional amendment, which will not be considered as a law. Yes, so law cannot abridge fundamental right. Therefore, ordinance cannot abridge fundamental right. Only it can be done through constitutional amendment. So this is incorrect. Ordinance can come into effect from a back date, that is, it has a retrospective application without a doubt. So we have 1 and 3. C would be the right choice here. I hope you are getting most of your questions from polity correct. Yes, I think polity has been a soothing air in this tough time of certain subjects like science and tech, etc. Environment also. Then state and description. Now, again, you would naturally know what is Arunachal Pradesh, where is Arunachal Pradesh, what is the capital. Now it is up to you why it is called Itanagar. You will not study it in your standard books without a doubt. But it is a part of your curiosity quotient. If you are applying your knowledge, if you have that capacity to generate a lot more questions, then why not know what is Itanagar, why Itanagar, why it is called Itanagar? Yes, Itanagar is the capital. Ita means bricks. So there was a brick. There was a brick fort developed by the kings of Shutia tribe. They developed it in 14th, 15th century. And that is the reason it is called as the city of bricks. It lies, this particular fort lies at the center of Itanagar. Do have a look at the images, you will be very satisfied, and this particular information will stay with you forever. If at all you've got it correct or incorrect. Now, second part of this information, it has 2 national parks. Yes. One is Namdapha. Now, Namdapha has been time and again asked by UPSC in various previous questions. For example, what type of species are found in Namdapha? So, Namdapha has been quite prominent in PYQs. Second is Moling National Park. So, the statement remains correct that it has 2 national parks, and of course, capital is named after a fort. Second is Nagaland. It came into existence after a Constitutional Amendment Act. Yes, though we don't need a constitutional amendment to create a particular state under Article 2 or 3. We know that Article 4 says that if at all you are changing boundaries, creating state, that will not be considered as amendment. However, we provided for certain extraordinary provisions for Nagaland, and that needed a constitutional amendment, and that was 13th Constitutional Amendment of 1962, and it came into being on 1st December 1963, after a year. So this is also correct. Tripura, initially a Part C state. Both Tripura and Manipur have been facing a similar trajectory. They were earlier a Part C state. Of course, by the original constitution, we remember that we had that this fourfold classification: Part A states, B, C, D. Then we went for reorganization, and in 1956 it became a UT along with Manipur and Tripura, and ultimately it became a state in 1972 along with again Manipur. So this is absolutely correct. All the three are rightly matched, and we are looking at correctly matched. So we have our answer as C here. Then 83rd question, and we are looking at provisions established according to the provisions of the Constitution. We know that interstate council has been provided under Article 263, and it provides that as and when president thinks, he might create it. And on the recommendation of Sarkari Commission, this was ultimately created in 1990. Yes, so it has its root in the provisions of the Constitution, yes. National Security Council, there is no conversation, no provision related to National Security Council in Constitution. So this is incorrect. Zonal Council, we know that it was not present in the Constitution. Then, when we were going for state reorganization, we provided an act in 1956, and it became a statutory body under this particular act. It is not also being provided under the Constitution. So we have only one. A would be the right answer here. Yes, then moving ahead. Then we are talking about Constitution explicitly talking about certain spheres for the governor where he can act as his own discretion, without a doubt, yes. If you recall Article 163, Clause 1 specifically talks about that a governor must act on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers of the state. Plus, it also provides except wherein he is required to act in his discretion, he might act in his discretion. Secondly, whenever there is a question regarding his discretion will be the final. His decision regarding the discretion would be the final. So it is discretion for the discretion and extraordinary power of the governor. So yes, first statement is correct. The president reserves a bill, can reserve a bill passed by a state legislature. So I think the problem lies is can. The president can. Now again, where is this statement coming from? Of course, UPSC has picked up from the Constitution. It is a static part. But ultimately, there have been controversy surrounding the state bills, that governor, when can he use pocket veto, when he goes for reserving the bill for the consideration of the president. And the Article 200 and 201 comes into question. Article 200 says that governor has various options while giving the assent, and one of the option is to reserve it for the president, consideration of the president. And it provides one condition: whenever there is a change in the jurisdiction of the High Court, then he must do this, must reserve the bill for the consideration of the president. That is the only condition. For others, it is the discretion of governor to reserve the bill for the consideration of the president if at all he thinks it fit. However, it does not provide for any timeline to be given, timeline to give assent, withhold assent, etc. It says as soon as possible, both for the president and the governor. This timeline, as soon as possible, became a point of contention. And ultimately, there came a judgment recently wherein it provided that there should be 3 months and 2 months and 1 month for president, governor, etc. regarding state bills. Now, president again recently utilizing Article 143, the advisory jurisdiction, they have sent that particular judgment back that we have certain questions, 5 specific questions. Then I want the answers. Can you go for issuing the mandamus writ for the president, etc.? Right? So it is a sub judice matter. But ultimately, can the president do that? It is always for the governor to do that. So this is incorrect, and we're looking at correct. So we have first statement as the only correct option. A would be the right answer here. Then again, provisions and states under which, what does it state, right? Separation of judiciary from executive in public service. We know that this is provided under Article 50, and Article 50 is DPSP. That is one of the directives. That is one of the articles where there is explicit mention of separation, right? Otherwise, it is more implicit. So we have this is correct. Valuing and preserving the rich heritage of composite culture. Whenever we are talking about composite culture, though it is a vague term, but we know that this is mentioned under Article 51A, subclause F, and that is a fundamental duty. So this statement is also, this pair is also correct. Prohibition of employment of children below the age of 14 years in factories, in mines, in hazardous activities, all that has been banned under Article 24, which is a fundamental right. So all three are correctly matched here. C would be the right answer. Make sense? Then 86th question. Again, we are going through the questions quite swiftly, but at the same time, I hope you are able to acknowledge that if your static portion is good enough, then in current affairs portion, you will be able to tackle a lot of things. So make sure for the forthcoming, for the people who are watching it as a solution or as a reference point for the next attempt, make sure that you are taking note that static has to be the foundation. Yes. Now we have 86th question, and it is talking about scheduled area under 5th schedule. Now there are various provisions regarding 5th schedule. Go through 5th schedule if required. But we know that there is more power to the president in the 5th schedule rather than under 6th schedule. In 6th schedule, it is the governor who is more powerful. So, governor can give a report to the administration regarding the administration to the president, and president can issue directions. Governor can report and president can issue direction. Let's have a look. Statement, the state government loses its executive power. Again, problematic statement. We have around 10 states under 5th schedule, 10 state areas within 10 states. And it says that state's executive power extends to scheduled areas as well. So it does not lose. First statement is incorrect already. We have eliminated 2 options. Union government can take over the total administration. Again, an extremist statement. Can take over the total administration. That is, of course, incorrect again. Extreme statement, if you have been able to notice that what is the basic of 5th schedule, the scheduled areas, then I think you will be able to acknowledge only the application. If you don't remember the clauses, the provision, the bare application, what is the point of having 5th schedule? It is ultimately that there should be autonomy. And if at all they are taking away all the autonomy, then what is the point of having it? So we have D as the right option. Then we have organizations and ministry. Straightforward question. Automotive board is under Ministry of Heavy Industry. Nothing to discuss. COIR board is under Ministry of MSME. And National Center for Trade Information is under Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Now, these type of questions, you know, I'm sure that you'll be able to relate COIR board, you'll be able to relate automotive board also. But there might be a case that there might be confusion regarding this. So it will be your call that if you want to go ahead. So we have correctly matched as none as correctly matched. All are incorrectly matched. So moving ahead, 88th question. Subjects, and we are looking at that which of these subjects require state ratification under Article 368. We know that under Article 368, there are 3 types of amendments. The simple majority, special majority, and special majority plus state ratification, 50% of the legislatures. So it is only talking that what are these cases? And we know that Article 368 specifically lists down certain areas or dimensions where we require state ratification. Now the logic itself says when we are talking about state ratification, that means it will be impacting the federal structure of the constitution. If and these provisions are directly related to it, for example, 7th schedule, election of the president, manner of election of the president, then legislative relations or union judiciary, high courts, etc. Whenever we are amending Article 368 itself, that has to be also required any state ratification. So we have union list, any list, it says any list of the schedule, 7th schedule. So this would require extent of the executive power of the state, Article 162 specifically mentioned. So this is also correct. Conditions of governor office, that is specifically not mentioned. If you have read the Bare Act, then you can easily solve it. So we have 1 and 2 as correct. A would be the right answer here. Then governor of a state is not answerable to any court for the exercise of powers. We know that Article 14 is right to equality. Right to equality. And within the constitution, there are provisions which contradict or provide for certain exception. One such exception is under Article 361. For the head of state at the union and state level, the president and governor. So it provides for extraordinary powers to these individuals. And one of this is governor is not answerable in any court for exercise and performance of the powers. Yes. No criminal proceedings can be instituted during his term. Absolutely correct. So this is also correct and this is also correct. Now, member of state legislature are not liable. Now, it is, these two are related to Article 361. This is privileges, 194, privileges of the legislature, state legislature. For union, it is Article 105. Member of state legislature are not liable to any proceeding in any court in respect of anything said, anything voted upon within the house or the committees within the house. So specifically again taken from the constitution. So we have this also as correct. All these statements as correct. D would be the right answer here. Then 90th question, and it is talking about Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board. We know that it is a statutory body. It is passed by a act. It was established under a act, and it provides for various things. Among those things have been the refining, processing, storage, transportation, distribution, marketing, sales, everything it does, but it does not deal with production. Yes, it does not deal with production. And if it doesn't deal with production and it deals with refining, etc., of what? Of three things: petroleum, petroleum products, and natural gas. Yes, so it does not deal with production of crude oil, of natural gas. It is quite natural also, right? We know that we import lot of crude oil from foreign sources. Then how are we going to deal with the production also? Yes, and the name itself suggests it is a regulatory board. Makes sense? So if we eliminate these two, we have our answer already. Refining, storage, and distribution of petroleum, that is absolutely correct. Marketing and sales also correct. Only two as the right answer. B would be the right answer for question 90. Then we are done with the polity portion. Now let's move on to international relation, another important part, though not as standard as a subject, but still it can give you a lot of edge, and consistently there have been questions of the range 3 to 6. This time there have been around 5 questions from international relation. Yes, let's have a look at these statements. Again, direct question from simulator X. That is the open simulator we had a couple of weeks back. It talks about NATO. Of course, we have been reading about Russia-Ukraine war, and we know that what NATO is. We know that it is an organization established in 1949 by 12 members, and it is based on the idea of collective security. People from Pol Science would understand it better. and then it went on to evolve itself, expand its membership, and big expansion took place after the fall of USSR in 1990. In 90s and early 2000, lot of expansion happened, and then another phase started in late 2010s. In 2017, then 20, then 23, and then 24. 2024. Now we have, by last year, we have reached the strength of 32, and Sweden is the latest joinee. Sweden is the latest joinee. Yes, let's have a look. Now, interestingly, now here the application part comes in. When you're talking about Serbia, if I look at this particular question from my end, because I follow tennis and I follow a particular individual from tennis, Djokovic, he is from Serbia, and there have been NATO bombings regarding Serbia. And I have read it around it, if not from this perspective, not from UPSC, but before it itself. Then I, from my knowledge base, can eliminate it totally, because that continues to be a dispute. Now, if you have seen the evolution, then it is quite natural with expansion. Bulgaria and Croatia joined in 2000s. Then Sweden has recently joined. North Macedonia has recently joined. This is joined in 2020 probably, and this is 2024. Australia is yet to join. If you look at the membership, you will see a big spot at the center of Europe. So we have second, third, fifth, and sixth. Only 4 would be the right answer here. Again, application-based question, more or less. Now, question people ask that why do we need to remember all the member states, all the categories, all the chairmen, members, eligibility. So for this type of question, we need to do that. It might turn out really technical for certain people, but at the same time, one who has been curious, one who has seen the evolution for himself, it will be easier fruit for them to chew. So we have 52nd question now, BIMSTEC. We know that what BIMSTEC is. 7 members came together and established BIMSTEC, and the founding members were India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and I think it was Thailand. Yes, these came together and established BIMSTEC, and then later on Nepal and Bhutan joined, and also Myanmar joined. I think it was in 1997, the mid part of 1997, June 97, they established BIMSTEC. And Myanmar also joined in later part of that particular year. And Nepal and Bhutan later joined, I think it was in 2004. Do cross check this. It is a regional organization consisting of 7 members. Yes. Now, it would have been confusing for people that, oh, it was BRICS or BIMSTEC which has recently got its member expansion. So again, if you are not able to narrow down that, eliminate that, then it will be problematic. This still has 7 members for over 2 decades. It came into existence signing of Dhaka Declaration. No, it was Bangkok Declaration. And Dhaka is prominent because BIMSTEC has its secretariat at Dhaka. So we have one as correct, and second we have eliminated. If we eliminate 2 and we are looking for correct, so either answer is 1 or 4. We don't need to read third even. So let's have a look at without reading the third one. In BIMSTEC, the sub-sector of tourism is being led by India. Now again, you should know one thing, that what is India leading in? One particular thing India is leading in is counter-terrorism. Yes. So it has various sectors, sub-sectors according to which, and tourism is for Nepal. So again, this is not India. So if this is incorrect, we know that our answer is D already. Now still, let's have a look at the third statement. Founding members, we know that Nepal is not the founding member, already eliminated. D would be the right answer. Then we have question 57. It has 3 statements. 16th BRICS Summit. We know that last year BRICS Summit took place at Kazan in Russia. Nothing to talk about it. So this is absolutely correct, and it has been, I think, 3 or 4 years. It was in 2021 where we held this particular summit in India. Now next it is moving to Brazil, Rio. Indonesia has become a full member. Of course, yes, in January 2025 itself, couple of months back. Herein, the static portion is boosted by the current affairs. Yes, if you have gone through the SFG essentials, it will be helpful. So we have 1 and 2 as correct. Third is theme for 6th BRICS summit was strengthening multiculturalism for just global development and security. It is not a multiculturalism. I don't know why UPSC has asked this, but it is a multilateralism for fair, quite close though, but not exactly the same. So this is, we'll be considering this as incorrect. 1 and 2, A would be the right answer here. Make sense? Then we have couple of more questions from IR Nature Restoration Law. Now this was specifically from Simulator X. We have talked about, I have myself discussed what is Nature Restoration Law. Passed in 2024 by EU. Looking at the future perspective that we have to establish a particular long-term solution for restoration, long-term restoration of nature. So it also gave itself certain targets that 20% of the land and sea of Europe region should be recovered by 2030 and 100% by 2050. That is the target that has been given. So we know the specific answer is A. You don't even need to know the details if you have just gone through that current affair magazine. Then this particular question can be disputable. Let's have a look. International North-South Transport Corridor. Now we know that it has been in the making now for decades, but it was initially established that India would be trying to reach Europe through Central Asia, and of course Iran would also be part of this. So we know that this is quite close to the original answer, and this is also, if you look at the maps, the images, if you Google it out, it will appear that this is the right answer because it is not containing any Central Asia, etc. But having discussed, and we have come to the conclusion that we'll be sticking to the standard with what objective it has been established, but it has to be through Central Asia. That is the most important thing. Of course, Iran is there. Chabahar port is there, through which we'll be connecting. And recently we received a particular shipment from Russia through this particular region. So A would be the right answer. Again, UPSC might go with D as well, but I think we are looking for more correct. A would be the right option from our end. Then regions and country, again, for me, I think whatever I know from my hobbies, etc. Again, Mallorca, I would say it is an island where Nadal is from in tennis. So he is from Spain, and Mallorca is one of those islands. Again, if I have not seen this question also, I had this knowledge for over 20 years now. This might be true for certain individuals. Some might know Normandy this way, some might know Sardinia this way, that cousin went to Sardinia and I have got a job offer, etc., etc. Normandy, again in current affairs, from France, and Sardinia is part of Italy, a big island we know whenever we do our international geography. So we are looking at correctly matched. None is correctly matched. D would be the right answer here. So that was about it from international relations and polity portion. I hope you get maximum out of it. Now, whatever grind you have gone through, I would just want to suggest that relax, take a couple of days break. Now you have got the keys also. Don't take stress. Let's wait for the result also, without a doubt. But for the next 10, 20, whenever the results are out, do not waste these days. Take a break for 2-3 days and then start the grind, irrespective of you feel that I am the border case, I am clearing, I am not clearing, etc. Anyway, it is going to help you in your preparation cycle. So that is it. All the very best. Thank you.
Okay. So welcome back. So we are reaching to the last leg of our UPSC Civil Services 2025 paper discussion. And the next subject is modern history. And I would like to welcome Vikrant sir. Vikrant sir, please join us. So before
Thank you, sir.
moving forward, let's have a quick word about what's your take about modern history this year. No, suddenly the क्या बोलते हैं खाता खुल गया मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री का.
सर खाता पहले भी खुला हुआ था.
कहाँ एक दो सवाल तो आ रहे थे.
4 सवाल थे पिछले साल. ठीक है. So he is right. Sir is right that for past 3 years UPSC has been asking 4 questions. We had that consistency from the highs of 14 questions in 2018. UPSC has asked 4 questions in 2022, 23, 24. But this year, yes, हमने बड़े स्कोर की तरफ अगर सर हुए हैं हम इस
कितना
बार.
8 क्वेश्चन आए इस बार.
नहीं क्वेश्चन. So yes, let us talk about the nature of the question.
हाँ, nature of the question.
So modern history has not let down those who have made some effort to understand. See, the focus had to be on understanding, not the nitty-gritties of it. Okay. For instance, earlier, every year, at least there was one question which would stump the students. For instance, we had the question on Bhil Seva Mandal in 2021. Then recently we had question on songs from prison. Right? So such questions had stumped the students, or there were questions on the constitutional development of British rule in India from 1773 Regulating Act to 1995. So this year, those questions have not been asked. You didn't have to go into nitty-gritties at all. If you just had a good understanding of modern history, or as I always keep telling the students, कि कहानी अगर तुमको पता है, if you know the chronology, then you would have been definitely able to solve the questions. They are mostly from standard. We will see. We have covered every question barring one directly in the class. That question also we have referred to it. So we will see that during the discussion. लेकिन अगर आपको कहानी पता थी, आपको एक understanding थी, then you would not have any issues at all in modern history.
So basically questions were pretty much traditional, and most of the thing अगर मुझे लगता है कि क्लास में या तो जो फोरम की टेस्ट सीरीज है उसमें कवर तो क्या ही गया था.
Correct.
और कुछ क्वेश्चंस पीवाईक्यू के डिस्कशन से भी आए हैं जो हमारी पीवाईक्यू डिस्कशन की क्लासेस थी. ठीक है, तो विद दीज वर्ड आई वुड हैंड ओवर द पोडियम. यस,
हाई रिटर्न ऑन इन्वेस्टमेंट. अगर आपने थोड़ा भी एफर्ट
मारा है तो
then definitely you have received
8 direct questions now, और I think 3-4 साल तक this trend will continue. This is how this cyclic phenomenon in UPSC there will be a downturn. In that downturn modern history was facing some headwinds. Now that
to put it lightly.
Yes. So now modern history, those bad days are gone. The same applies to geography also. There was a era of crisis. अगर आप देखोगे geography के साथ, अगर आप 3-4 साल के पहले के पेपर देखोगे, 2 सवाल 1 सवाल. So geography का such a huge syllabus, and UPSC was asking just 2-3 questions, and suddenly again the number of questions for geography portion have started going on the upper side. So
we have as many questions this year from modern history as we have from ancient, medieval, and
see, the quota of history is 20 questions.
Yeah,
okay?
Approximately.
Quota of history is 20 questions. Modern history, art and culture, ancient, medieval history.
Yeah.
So if modern history will increase, the quota of art and culture, or it will encroach into the domain of ancient, medieval, art and culture, and same applies to all these 3 subjects combined.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Anyways, you continue.
So let us begin.
Okay.
अच्छा, ठीक है. Okay. So let us begin. I know it has been a long day for you. This graph shows a trend of modern history questions in previous years, and as you can see, we had the highs of, we have witnessed the highs of 2020 when 10 questions were asked. Previously 2018, I was just referring in the conversation with sir that in 2018 14 questions had been asked. Then it was 7 questions, then we had 4 questions. Consistently this shows here 2, but there were 4 questions in it. If you look at it, there was a question on the political parties that were formed. There was a question on Sachidanand Sinha, that who was the pro tem speaker of Constituent Assembly. So those questions were also part of modern history. But yes, we were consistently seeing that there is a stagnation in the number of questions that were being asked. So we have already discussed that part. This year, again, we are seeing 8 questions. And as I am saying, if you had an understanding of the subject, you would have been able to solve this. In the presentation, we have also mentioned that we have already covered each and every question in our classroom or in the handout or in both. Okay. So first question is on Raja Ram Mohan Roy. You did not have to think a lot, right? If you try to analyze too much, you would be wrong. You may have marked it incorrect. So the first question is, he possessed a great love and respect for the traditional philosophical systems of the East. Yes, it is right, because he had called the Upanishads as the most rational system. The college established by him was the Vedanta College, but he was for a synthesis. He did not say that just the Eastern philosophies will give you all the answers. For him, it was a mix or a synthesis of Eastern spiritualism and Western sciences. Okay, so first question is right. He desired his countrymen to accept rational and scientific approach. Yes, and the principle of human dignity, social equality of all men and women. Raja Ram Mohan Roy, called the first, he's called the father of modern India. He led a crusade against sati, and he was for equality between men and women. So you did not have to think a lot. You did not have to go into his criticism of the Vedas or his criticism of the Puranas, right? Overall, he was a great admirer and he had great respect for the Indian traditions. Okay, so you can see this is one of the handouts which you receive with every modern history class in all the courses. You can see here fusion of East and West. You can see here that Upanishads are most rational system. He has done Bengali translation of the scriptures, right? On his economic thought, I have mentioned here that he wanted a scientific revolution in India, right? He has in his economic thought also, will not go into the economic thought, but he has mentioned that he wants a scientific revolution, he wants a industrial revolution. So you can see the best of both worlds, and that is what the statement was in the question. Okay. Next, consider the following following subjects with regard to the non-cooperation movement. See, earlier UPSC has asked from 2016 to 2020, UPSC has repeatedly asked questions on Swadeshi boycott movement. In fact, in the same paper, there have been 2 questions which are from the Swadeshi and boycott movement. In this paper, we will see that there are 2 questions from the non-cooperation movement. So the focus in this paper was on another mass movement. Okay. Now, you have to be very careful, and I'll tell you where you would have made a mistake. If you consider these statements not for non-cooperation program, but for non-cooperation movement, you would have made a mistake. Let us look at the options. Consider the following subjects with regard to the non-cooperation program. Okay. Boycott of law, courts and foreign cloth. Yes. Observance of strict non-violence. For Gandhiji, to commit violence was to sin against God. Okay, that is why he even withdrew the Chauri Chaura movement. So the program had advocated strict adherence to non-violence in all Gandhiji's movements. Retention of titles, it is not retention, it is renunciation. The titles of Kaisar-e Hind, the title knighthood, titles of Rai Bahadur, Raja Sahab, all these were renounced by people. Okay, establishment of panchayats for settling the disputes. Yes, as an alternate mechanism, when the law courts established by the British were to be boycotted, then the panchayats, the local self-governments, would take their place. And that is why you would remember that the non-Swarajist had participated in the local self-government elections, but not in the council elections. So it was a Gandhian move. Okay, and on basis of this, the answer would be 3. Now, just to show you that we have covered these things in the classroom. Okay, I would have mentioned here promotion of Khadi as a mark of Swadeshi, promotion of local self-government, that is panchayats. Okay, And here we have mentioned in the non-constructive program, surrender of titles, positions, boycott of school, foreign cloth, courts, picketing of liquor stores. So in these notes, we have these many things, but in the handout, you would have some more aspects. But this covers what has been asked in the question. Okay. Moving further. In fact, the British had declared the panchayats to be illegal due to their popularity during the non-cooperation movement. And this has appeared again and again in news. It has appeared in 𝐼𝐸 𝐸 Mahotsav articles. So it is there. Consider the following statements in respect of, again, non-cooperation movement. Congress declared Swaraj by all legitimate and peaceful means. So earlier the goal was, the Article 1 of Indian National Congress said that attainment of Swaraj through constitutional means. But Gandhiji amended that Article 1 in the Nagpur session of Indian National Congress, not the Calcutta session, but the Nagpur session, that Swaraj by legitimate and peaceful means. Okay, it was to be implemented in stages with civil disobedience and non-payment of taxes for the next stage only if Swaraj did not come within a year and Swaraj and the government resorted to repression. Yes, the non-cooperation movement was to be launched in 2 stages. The second stage would include non-payment, so it would be more radical. Please understand that boycott of British products is not an illegal move, but the second stage of non-cooperation movement would include civil disobedience, which means breaking the law, which meant non-payment of taxes or renunciation from the government services. That was there in the second phase. So this is also correct. Answer is both 1 and 2. And you can see in the handout, we have covered it here, that there would be a second phase, which would include mass civil disobedience, which meant resignation from the government services and non-payment of taxes. And Gandhiji was in Bardoli to do just this when he received the news about Chauri Chaura. Okay. So this is again covered in the classes and it has been covered in the handout also. See, this is one question which has not been explicitly covered in the class, but I have mentioned it in the story, those of you who have attended. That is why I am saying again that in modern history, we are not asking you to get into the nitty-gritties. That is not the role of modern history in your syllabus, but you should have a very good idea about the ideology, about the notions, about the ideals, about the story of various freedom fighters in your syllabus. So, sedition has become my religion. It is actually a tough question because Gandhiji has spoken about sedition. Sedition is my creed. He has spoken about sedition in 1921. He has spoken about sedition in 1922. This particular statement was made by him when he was launching or when he was breaking the salt law at Dandi, and Sarojini Naidu was by his side on 6th April 1930. This question has also been asked in Rajasthan services, provincial services. In fact, very interestingly, this question was also asked in NDA 2021, and you would be surprised to know that it was not part of a modern history question. It was part of a verbal mental ability question. Okay, so you had to arrange the statements that were spoken by Gandhiji. So anyway, this was spoken when he was publicly violating the salt law at Dandi. You could have also arrived at this answer by eliminating things, that Gandhiji would not be talking about sedition in Champaran Satyagraha. Okay. In the second roundtable conference, there was a more conciliatory attitude, at least in the beginning, between the British and the Indians. During the Quit India movement, Gandhiji's statements are very popular, that I do not ask from you my kind of non-violence. But we do not remember this statement. However, again, I am saying that this was the only tricky question that was asked in modern history this year. Okay. Next question. Who provided legal defense to the people arrested in aftermath of the Chauri Chaura incident? So 222 people were arrested, and it was Madan Mohan Malviya, and he was assisted by Krishna Kant. Madan Mohan Malviya was able to ensure the acquittal of almost 200 people out of 222 accused in the Chauri Chaura incident. Again, this has been covered in all our classes, in all the handouts. Anyone that you would pick up. C.R. Das, you would remember, he had represented Aurobindo Ghosh in the Alipur conspiracy case. Okay, Saifuddin Kichlu was not a lawyer. And Muhammad Ali Jinnah, he has represented most popularly Tilak in the sedition case in 1907. He had also represented the INA prisoners. Okay, so that is when we see the popular participation of Jinnah as a lawyer. So as I said in the handout, if you look at the end of non-cooperation movement, then it has been explicitly mentioned that it was Madan Mohan Malviya who represented the accused in the Chauri Chaura case. Okay. Moving further along. Subsequent to which one of the following events, Gandhiji, who consistently opposed untouchability and appealed for its eradication from all spheres, decided to include the upliftment of Harijans in his political and social program. So it was the Pune Pact that British had, the Viceroy had declared, not the Viceroy, the Prime Minister during the second roundtable conference had declared that if Indians are not able to come to a conclusion or a consensus regarding separate electorates, then the British will grant it. And this is what happened through the Ramsay MacDonald's announcement, which we call as the Communal Award. And in aftermath of it, there was a Pune Pact, which was signed between Ambedkar and Madan Mohan Malviya technically, but it was really between Gandhiji and Ambedkar. And after this, Gandhiji decided to work for the upliftment of the depressed classes. He gave them the name Harijans. He established the Harijan Sevak Sangh. He set up the newspaper Harijan in English, Harijan Sevak in Hindi, and Harijan Bandhu in Gujarati. So this again I have mentioned in FRC, in so many places I have mentioned it here. So under Pune Pact, if you see your notes, you will see here that he gave a new name to the Harijans and published the newspaper Harijan, established the Rashtriya Harijan Sevak Sangh. Here also, if you see in your handout, you will find that September 1932, he has launched the Harijan weekly Gujarati translations, that is Harijan Sevak and Harijan Bandhu. So it is all again a standard question if you have gone through your material. Okay, next, consider the following fruits. See, this question, even if you have gone through your PYQs also, there was a question on Pune Pact about 3 years ago. Again, you would see that this is also related to PYQs. Since 2013, every 2 to 3 years, UPSC is asking about what the Europeans have introduced in India. So one question was about what English have introduced. Then again, there was a question about Columbian exchange, that plants which were brought from New World to the Old World and from Old World to the New World. Then there was a question on what Portuguese have introduced in one of the sentences. And again, they're asking that which of these were introduced by the Portuguese. So papaya, pineapple and guava, all these were found in the New World, in the Americas, and they were brought from the New World to the Old World, from Americas to Europe and from Europe to India by the Portuguese. So if you go through your, and that's why the answer would be all the three. If you go through your handout, then on the first line, first class, first handout, you will find these lines. There is pineapple, there is papaya, and there is guava. Okay. So we have discussed this in FRC, we have discussed in prelims classes, in all the programs. We see this in the first class itself. Again, it is a repeating theme. Talking of repeating themes, the self-respect movement, a question was asked in 2019, question was asked on 2021, and again, the same question I am saying, testing the same knowledge. The question is asked in 2025, that who among the following was the founder of self-respect movement? And it is Periyar, E.V. Ramaswamy Naikar. So I have tried to give you the answer. And I tried not to take a lot of time because I know you must already be exhausted after your exam and your effort. So I wish you all the best and I hope to see you in the mains. And now I call back Shubham sir. Thank you.
ठीक है, शुरू करें? ठीक है, so finally, we have reached to the last leg, the last portion of our 2025 prelims paper discussion, and that is ancient medieval history and art and culture. ठीक है, तो बहुत ही सिंपल सा ट्रेंड है. अगर आप देखोगे तो जैसा मैंने बताया था इन द बिगिनिंग ऑफ द डिस्कशन कि देयर इज अ कोट ऑफ 20 क्वेश्चंस फॉर हिस्ट्री एंड यूपीएससी जगल अराउंड द सेम थीम. ठीक है, मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री में बढ़ाएगा तो आर्ट एंड कल्चर में कम करेगा, या ऐसे ही चलता रहता है. पर ओवरऑल दिस पोर्शन साइज of history will be somewhere from 16 to 22 questions. ठीक है, अगर आप if you analyze the trend of ancient medieval history and art and culture, तो in 2024 one question was there from ancient medieval history. ठीक है, और 7 questions were there from art and culture. अभी इसी को पूरा रिवर्स कर दिया है. आर्ट एंड कल्चर का एक क्वेश्चन कर दिया है और एंशिएंट मिडाल हिस्ट्री में 7 क्वेश्चन कर दिया. तो दिस इज द सिंपल ट्रेंड. मोस्ट ऑफ टाइम यू विल सी द सेम आर्ट एंड कल्चर एंड एंशिएंट मिडाल का हिस्ट्री कंबाइंड. तो sum total will be somewhere around 8 to 12 questions. Sometimes back in 2014 no, some disproportionate number of questions were asked, but mostly ancient medieval art and culture, if you see, so 12 to 16 questions are you can generally expect, provided the portion of modern history is not unduly represented. ठीक है, खैर चलिए चलते हैं. तो आगे बढ़ने से पहले अगर मैं बताऊं कि फ्रॉम वेयर दीज क्वेश्चंस वेर आस्क्ड, तो मोस्टली द क्वेश्चंस वेर फ्रॉम, एक तो एनसीईआरटी में है ये क्वेश्चन, सीधे एनसीईआरटी का क्वेश्चन पूछा हुआ है. ठीक है, अगर आप एनसीईआरटी की 11th क्लास की फाइन आर्ट्स की अगर बुक अगर आपने पढ़ी है तो दैट यू विल फाइंड दिस विचित्र चित्र. मट्टी विलासा नहीं मिलेगा, ये नहीं मिलेगा, लेकिन ये वर्ड आपको मिलेगा. ठीक है, पेंटिंग की जो चैप्टर है फाइन आर्ट्स की 11th क्लास की बुक में, इन दैट दिस क्वेश्चन इज देयर. ठीक है, Who among the following rulers in ancient India has assumed the title Mattavilasa, Vichitrachit and Gunbhadra? Vichitrachit का मतलब होता है curious mind. Gunbhadra यानी कि the one who is full of good character, good behavior, good values, good virtues. And Mattavilasa यानी कि drunkard. ठीक है, तो आंसर विल बी महेंद्र वर्मन 1. इस पे नहीं जाएंगे, ये जिस स्टूडेंट का जेरोक्स हमने यूज किया उसका है. ठीक है, पर जिसका भी है ये, उसने ये एग्जाम नहीं क्लियर किया, दैट इज फॉर श्योर. ठीक है, महेंद्र वर्मन 1 विल बी द आंसर. एंड दिस क्वेश्चन अगर आप ये देखोगे तो डायरेक्टली हैंडआउट का मेरे क्लास का ये हैंडआउट भी है. अगर आप महेंद्र वर्मन 1 जब पल्लवा डायनेस्टी के बारे में हम पढ़ते हैं, विचित्र चित्र, चित्रकारपुली और चैत्यकारी, ये 3, दीज आर द 3 टाइटल्स विच वेर कॉन्फर्ड अपॉन महेंद्र वर्मन 1. ठीक है, उसके अलावा ही वॉज ऑल्सो द ऑथर ऑफ मट्टविलासा प्रसन, डिलाइट ऑफ द ड्रंकार्ड. ठीक है, तो यहां से महेंद्र वर्मन का नाम पड़ता है. तो फर्स्ट आंसर विल बी महेंद्र वर्मन. हैंडआउट में भी है, ये हैंडआउट का स्क्रीनशॉट है. उसके अलावा इरिगेशन डिवाइस कॉल्ड अरघट्टा, 2016 में सेम क्वेश्चन वाज आस्क्ड, सेम क्वेश्चन इज बीन रिपीटेड. पीवाईक्यू की क्लासेस में कह कह के मैं मर गया, थक गया कि भाई पीवाईक्यू इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, और अगर आपने पीवाईक्यू सही से किया होगा तो एटलीस्ट 10 to 15 क्वेश्चंस यू वुड हैव बीन एबल टू सॉल्व डायरेक्टली. इनडायरेक्ट की तो मैं बात ही नहीं कर रहा हूं. 10 to 15 क्वेश्चन यू वुड हैव बीन एबल टू सॉल्व डायरेक्टली इन आउट ऑफ दोज 100 क्वेश्चंस. अरघट्टा का सवाल सीधे पूछा हुआ है, ये भी एनसीईआरटी में भी है, और उसके अलावा दिस इज द बी इज द राइट आंसर हियर. उसके अलावा अपार्ट फ्रॉम एनसीईआरटी, जब गुप्ताज और मिडाइवल हिस्ट्री के बारे में हम पढ़ते हैं तो इन दैट ऑल्सो नो, in medieval history also and as well as in the Guptas, we generally study about Arghatta. Arghatta घंटी यंत्र भी कहते हैं इसको. इसको पर्शियन व्हील भी कहा जाता है. जब बेसिकली अगर जिन लोगों को नहीं पता है थोड़ा सा बता देता हूँ. सपोज दिस इज अ वेल से पानी निकालने के लिए अभी जो है ट्यूबवेल का इस्तेमाल होता है. पहले ट्यूबवेल तो था नहीं, तो क्या होता था, ऐसे एक व्हील होती थी, इस व्हील में buckets were attached and then this was a horizontal shaft and this horizontal shaft used to rotate around the well. अब ये generally कोई बैल या कोई भी donkey या whatever, it was rotated and this wheel used to move in this direction. इधर से खाली बकेट आया, इधर से पानी को फिल किया, फिर यहाँ पे सरफेस लाके वाटर के चैनल में उसको पोर कर दिया. दिस वॉज द सिंपल टेक्निक, दिस वॉज कॉल्ड अरघट्टा. ठीक है, घंटी यंत्र या पर्शियन व्हील. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन, फैक्सियान या फहायन भी बोलते हैं. ये भी क्वेश्चन जो है फैक्सियान के बारे में, हुएन सांग के बारे में if you have seen past 10 years question, every year or every alternate year there is a question on a traveler. चाहे फैक्सियान के बारे में हो, चाहे हुएनसैंग के बारे में हो, चाहे नूनीस के बारे में हो, या फ्रैंकोइस ट्रैवनियर के बारे में हो, ऐसे करके हर साल पूछता है. ठीक है, तो कॉमन थीम पे चलते हुए फैक्सियान द चाइनीज पिलग्रिम ट्रैवल टू इंडिया ड्यूरिंग द रेन ऑफ, वेरी सिंपल क्वेश्चन, चंद्रगुप्त विक्रमादित्य या चंद्रगुप्त द सेकंड. ठीक है, ये भी क्लास में डायरेक्टली डिस्कस किया गया था. चंद्रगुप्त सेकंड के बारे में जब हम पढ़ रहे थे तो फैक्सियान, अ बुद्धिस्ट फ्रॉम चाइना, विजिटेड इंडिया ड्यूरिंग हिज रेन. उन्होंने एक किताब लिखी जिसका नाम था रिकॉर्ड ऑफ बुद्धिस्ट किंगडम. ठीक है, जिसका नाम है फोग्यो जी इन चाइनीज. बुक का नेम जो ओरिजिनल टाइटल दैट इज फोग्यो जी रिकॉर्ड ऑफ बुद्धिस्ट किंगडम. बाकी फैक्सियान ने चंद्रगुप्त विक्रमादित्य के बारे में क्या लिखा है, व्हाट वर हिज ऑब्जर्वेशन, दोज थिंग्स वेर आल्सो डिस्कस इन द क्लास डायरेक्टली. तो जिन लोगों ने फाउंडेशन की क्लास अच्छे से करी है, जिन लोगों ने पीवाईक्यू डिस्कशन की क्लास अच्छे से करी है, जिन लोगों ने एसएफजी और प्रीलिम्स पीटीएस का टेस्ट पेपर बहुत ही डिलीजेंटली दिया है, ये क्वेश्चन वाज नो ब्रेनर एट ऑल. वेरी डायरेक्ट, वेरी सिंपल. ठीक है, वेरी पेडेस्ट्रियन, वेरी मुंडेन. आगे चलते. Who among the following led a successful military campaign against the kingdom of �ශ්ৰীවිજયા, the powerful maritime state which ruled the Malay Peninsula, Sumatra, Java and neighboring island? Answer is Rajendra I. ठीक है, Rajendra Chola is the right answer. Again, this question was directly discussed in the class. जब हम लोग राजेंद्र चोला के बारे में पढ़ रहे थे तो he invaded several places such as Malaysia, Indonesia. ठीक है, मलेशिया, इंडोनेशिया, पूरा मैप वेब भी बनाकर हैंडआउट में दिया हुआ है. श्री विजया एम्पायर, मलेशिया एंड इंडोनेशिया. फिर से वापस क्वेश्चन पे आते हैं. मलय पेनिनसुला यानी कि मलेशिया, उस समय चूंकि मलेशिया था नहीं तो मलय पेनिनसुला विल बी द राइट राइट टर्मिनोलॉजी. एंड सुमात्रा एंड जावा दे आर बेसिकली इंडोनेशियन आइलैंड. ठीक है, तो राजेंद्र चोला इज द राइट आंसर. अगला सवाल देखते हैं. विथ रेफरेंस टू एंशिएंट इंडिया, थोड़ा सा टफर लेवल पे है पर क्लास में इसको डिस्कस करते थोड़ा सा फैक्चुअल बोलूंगा मैं. आई वोंट से इट इज अ टफ, बट आई वुड से दैट इट इज बिट अ मिक्सचर ऑफ ज्योग्राफी एंड हिस्ट्री. ठीक है, ज्योग्राफी और हिस्ट्री का थोड़ा सा मिक्स है. तो अस्मक, जिसको असक भी कहते हैं, गोदावरी, तो दिस इज राइट. अगर आपने इफ यू वुड हैव स्टडीड, ठीक है, एज ऑफ महाजनपद, महाजनपद पीरियड के बारे में अगर आपने पढ़ा होगा तो देयर वर टोटल 16 महाजनपद. तो सबसे जो सदर्न मोस्ट है अस्मक, और गोदावरी भी यहीं बहती है. तो प्लेन एंड सिंपल. कंबोज विपासा, या जिसको बीज भी कहते हैं. ठीक है, तो ये तो होगा नहीं क्योंकि कंबोज इधर पर है, अफगानिस्तान के पास है. ठीक है, कंबोज अफगानिस्तान रीजन में. ब्यास नदी जो है या बीज रिवर जो है इधर नहीं बहती. ठीक है, बीज रिवर उधर नहीं बहती, बीज रिवर इधर बहती है, ब्यास नदी. ठीक है, हिमाचल और इन सारे रीजन में. तो दिस इज रॉन्ग. ठीक है, अवंती महानदी. अब अवंती अगर आप देखोगे दैट इज इन मध्य प्रदेश. महानदी इस तरफ बहती है, इधर नर्मदा होना चाहिए था. ठीक है, नर्मदा. कोसला सरयू, तो दैट इज राइट, कोसला सरयू. अगर आप हैंडआउट देखोगे तो ये सारी चीजें उसमें डिस्कस की हुई है. रिवर जैसे अवंती का नर्मदा के बारे में डिस्कस किया हुआ है, कोसला का सरयू है. ठीक है, वत्स महाजनपद, यमुना, वज्जी महाजनपद, गंडक, मल्ल महाजनपद, अगेन सरयू. आज के टाइम पे मल्ल विच इज बेसिकली कुशीनगर एंड गोरखपुर वाला रीजन जो है. देन अस्मक रिवर, गोदावरी कैपिटल का भी नाम है. तो ये थोड़ा, ये जो है क्वेश्चन डायरेक्टली हैंडआउट में इट वाज इंक्लूडेड, दैट कुड हैव बीन सॉल्व्ड इफ यू वुड हैव पेड इनफ अटेंशन. ठीक है, चलो. द फर्स्ट गंधर्व महाविद्यालय, a music training school was set up in 1901 by Vishnu Digambar Palsukar. भाई ये क्वेश्चन दैट वाज नॉट डिस्कस्ड इन द क्लास एट ऑल. ठीक है, ये प्लेन इंफॉर्मेशन बेस्ड क्वेश्चन है. फिर भी अगर थोड़ा सा लॉजिक लगाएंगे तो थोड़ा सा इसको कर सकते हैं. आई वोंट से कि आप कर ही सकते थे, बट इफ वुड हैव अप्लाइड प्लेन लॉजिक. कभी भी ऐसा क्वेश्चन आए तो हमेशा ऑलवेज गो फॉर अ वेरी ऑड ऑप्शन. ठीक है, ऑड ऑप्शन की तरफ जाना चाहिए. जैसे अब दिल्ली दिया है, ग्वालियर दिया है, उज्जैन दिया, दीज ऑल द लोकेशंस आर लोकेटेड इन इंडिया, ठीक है, ऑल द लोकेशंस आर लोकेटेड इन इंडिया. लाहौर एक ऑप्शन दिया है विच इज अ बिट ऑड, ठीक है. सो if you are running short of attempted questions, so you can follow. I'm not saying that this is the foolproof strategy, but if you are running short of attempted questions, यानी कि 60 ही क्वेश्चन अटेम्प्ट किया तो वैसे भी होना नहीं, ठीक है. 60 क्वेश्चन अगर आपने अटेम्प्ट किया तो वैसे भी होना जाना नहीं. तो अगर if you want to push your luck, then you can apply this logic, not logic, a kind of trick you can say. तो विष्णु दिगंबर पलसुकर, लाहौर इज द राइट आंसर. पहले आजादी से पहले लाहौर में इसको एस्टैब्लिश किया गया था. व्हेन आफ्टर इंडिपेंडेंस 1947 इट वाज शिफ्टेड टू दिल्ली. इट इज इंडियाज फर्स्ट कॉलेज या यूनिवर्सिटी कह लो विच जनरली डील्स विथ क्लासिकल आर्ट्स ऑफ इंडिया, परफॉर्मिंग आर्ट, क्लासिकल परफॉर्मिंग आर्ट. Ashokan inscription suggests that Pradeshika, Rajuka and Yukta were important officers at विलेज लेवल, डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल, प्रोविंशियल लेवल, सेंट्रल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. आंसर होगा इसका डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल, ठीक है. डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल विल बी द राइट आंसर. विलेज लेवल पे अगर आप देखोगे तो गोपा, स्थानिका, ये सारे थे, ठीक है. प्रोविंशियल लेवल पे कुमार अमत्या, कुमार अमत्या, they were basically royal, they were members of the family, royal family, and they were basically appointed as provincial governors. कुमार अमत्या बोलते थे. सेंट्रल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में दूसरा हायरार्की चलती है, ठीक है. डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पर वापस आते हैं. और ये क्लास का अगर आप हैंड आउट देखोगे, मॉडर्न एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में सिंपल, देयर एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव हेड एट डिफरेंट लेवल. किंगडम में राजा होता था, प्रदेश में कुमार अमत्या होता था, यानी प्रोविंशियल लेवल. डिवीजन बाय डिवीजन लेवल पे कह लो या डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पे कह लो, डिस्ट्रिक्ट का थोड़ा सा ऊपर वर्जन होता है डिवीजन, वहां पे प्रदेशिका. देन डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पे देवर राजुकास हु वर असिस्टेड बाय द युक्तास. तो राजुकास आर बेसिकली मॉडर्न डे डिस्ट्रिक्ट कलेक्टर, ठीक है, डिस्ट्रिक्ट कलेक्टर कह लो. और युक्तास आप मान लो कि सब डिविजनल मजिस्ट्रेट कह लो, एसडीएम कह लो, इस तरीके से, ठीक है. तो यहां पर ऐसे दिया हुआ है. विलेज लेवल पे ग्रामिका होता था, गांव का मुखिया. देन 10 गांव मिला के उनका हेड होता था, दैट वाज गोपा. एंड स्थानका वाज द हेड ऑफ 100 विलेजेस, यानी कि 10 गोपास, ठीक है. 10 गोपास यूज टू दे यूज टू रिपोर्ट टू द स्थानिका. तो ये पूरा डायरेक्ट जो है हैंड आउट में क्लास में डिस्कस किया गया था. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन, फेमस फीमेल फिगर इन डांसिंग गर्ल. तो किसको नहीं पता होगा. अगर आपने अगर ये सवाल गलत किया है तो देयर इज समथिंग सीरियसली वेरी रॉन्ग विथ योर अप्रोच, ठीक है. तो मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री में, सॉरी, एंशिएंट मिडल हिस्ट्री में पढ़ोगे, सबसे पहला चैप्टर होता है, उसमें सबसे जो मोस्ट स्टार्टलिंग जो फीचर आप देखते हो, दैट इज अ डांसिंग गर्ल विच वाज फाउंड एट मोहनजोदारो. It is made of bronze, ठीक है. This was also directly discussed in the class. Stone statues में basically male torso और ये क्या बोलते हैं, priest, bearded man जिसको कहते हैं, वो stone में आएंगे. बाकी bronze में आपके dancing girl, और उसके अलावा एक और famous है bronze bull, ठीक है. तो ये भी जो है that was also covered in the handout directly. You could have been able to solve this question, ठीक है. तो दिस वाज ऑल अबाउट 2025 पेपर, ठीक है. तो अब एक और सवाल आता है, कट ऑफ कितना जाएगा. तो कट ऑफ का डिस्कशन इज अ फ्यूटाइल डिस्कशन. नो वन, एब्सोल्युटली नो वन कैन प्रेडिक्ट व्हाट वुड बी द कट ऑफ. 7-8 years ago prediction of कट ऑफ वाज easier, क्योंकि क्या होता था कि स्टडी मटेरियल जो है दैट वाज लिमिटेड. अगर स्टैंडर्ड रेफरेंस बुक से अगर आया है तो दैट इज एन इजी क्वेश्चन, उससे बाहर आया इट वाज टफ क्वेश्चन. दैट वाज द बेसिक प्लेन सिंपल बाइनरी सेग्रीगेशन मेथोडोलॉजी. स्टैंडर्ड बुक में है, लक्ष्मीकांत में है, लूसेंट में है, या ये जो भी एनसीईआरटी में है, तो सिंपल क्वेश्चन है, चाहे कितना भी फैक्चुअल क्यों ना हो. उसके बाहर का किसी भी किताब में है, चाहे कितना भी आसान क्यों ना हो, दैट वाज अ टफ क्वेश्चन, ठीक है. But nowadays, since the advent and proliferation of internet, this definition, this methodology of segregating easy and tough question is no longer there. लेकिन फिर भी अगर if you ask me to make such a some wild guess regarding the cutoff, तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है इट्स नॉट इंस्टीट्यूशन का कोई ऑफिशियल वो नहीं है, ये मेरा पर्सनल वो है, फोरम आईएएस हैज नथिंग टू डू विद इट। तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि 90 टू 100 के बीच में जाएगा, फिर भी 10 नंबर का बहुत ज्यादा होता है, उसमें भी अगर 90 टू 100 के बीच में अगर आप और पुश करोगे तो माई वाइल्ड गेस विल बी समवेयर अराउंड 95 टू 100। बिकॉज ऐसा इसलिए बोल रहा हूँ, अगर सी सेट बहुत टफ नहीं रहा तो ऐसा इसलिए बोला बिकॉज द क्वेश्चंस व्हिच वर आस्क्ड इन एंशिएंट मिडावल, द मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री, इवन पॉलिटी फॉर सेक और ज्योग्राफी के भी कुछ क्वेश्चन जो है सिंपल स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड थे। इस वजह से मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि कट ऑफ थोड़ा सा पिछले साल से 2-4-5 नंबर ऊपर जा सकते, लाइक लास्ट ईयर इट वाज समवेयर अराउंड 88, तो इट कैन गो अराउंड 94 टू 95। ठीक है, तो यही है, 95 मार्क्स प्लस -2 कट ऑफ रहेगी, 93 टू 97 के बीच में आई थिंक कट ऑफ विल होवर। ठीक है, so that's all for the discussion. All the best. See you in mains.